But I want everybody to also know throughout the stream, we will have these QR codes on the screen that you can put your phone up, and you can go ahead and it'll open up a website for you. But we have a few things for you that we want to alert your attention to. First, the CBN Faith in Action. If you want to go beyond and make your voice heard beyond the stream, beyond attending the march, go ahead on over to CBN's Faith in Action, and it's going to give you an opportunity to make your voice heard. You can sign petitions on issues you care about, and for the pro-life issue, you can make your voice heard on stopping taxpayer-funded abortion, saving babies who feel pain, protect babies who are born alive. Those issues and so much more, you can go ahead and make your voice heard on that at cbnfaithinaction.com, or just hit up the QR code. And of course, follow our CBN News YouTube channel. You can get events like this and great news content. You can go ahead to the CBN News YouTube channel, subscribe there, and also don't forget to download the CBN News app. Don't let the censors dictate the news that you are seeing. You can take control of that. Download the CBN News app. We'll have those QR codes up. You can see them there throughout the stream. We will get back to Billy and Trey in a little bit. When the march actually begins. It doesn't quite start just yet, but we're going to walk along with it, and you can walk along with them. But we are going to take you here to the stage. Dan, if I'm not mistaken, the festivities are about to get underway. So we want to take you over to that stage and let you watch in right now. Enjoy it.
At the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Darren and Matthew, thank you very much. Each year, we are grateful for the collaborative witness of the Orthodox bishops and the Roman Catholic bishops opening our rally in prayer. In continuing this proud tradition, I am now happy to welcome to the podium His Eminence Archbishop L.P. the Forosos of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of America, Chairman of the Assembly of the Canonical Orthodox Bishops of the United States of America. His Eminence is joined on stage by a delegation of Orthodox Christian and Roman Catholic bishops from around the country. Please welcome LP the Forosos.
Dear sisters and brothers, today we come together in solidarity with our brother bishops of the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops and of the Assembly of Canonical Orthodox Bishops of the United States of America. We affirm the gift and the sanctity of life, all life, born and unborn. As Christians, we confess that every human being is made in the image and likeness of God. Every life is worthy of our prayer and our protection, whether in the womb or in the world. We are all responsible for the well-being of children. We are their keepers and cannot shirk from our accountability for their welfare. At the same time, we also affirm our respect for the autonomy of women. It is they who bring forth life into the world. By his incarnation, our Lord, God and Savior Jesus Christ assumed human nature through his conception in the womb of the Virgin Mary. Virgin Mary freely chose to bring him into the world, and God respected her freedom. We can and we must make the case for life, both born and unborn, by our example of unconditional love. We march today. We march not for coercion. We march with compassion. We march with empathy, with love, and with our arms extended to embrace all. Let us pray to the Lord. Lord, have mercy. Lord, you have granted us the opportunity to offer these common prayers in unison, and have promised that when 2 or 3 gather in your name, you are there also. Fulfill now, O Lord, who has conceived in the womb of the Virgin Mary, by the power of your all-Holy Spirit, the petitions of your servants. Remember, Lord, the people here present and those who are absent with good cause. Have mercy on them and on us according to the multitude of your mercy. Remember, O God, all those whom we are not able to commemorate by forgetfulness or because of their multitude, since you know the name and the age of each, even from their mother's womb. For you, Lord, are the helper of the helpless. You are the hope of the hopeless. You are the Savior of the afflicted. You are the haven of the voyager, and you are the physician of the sick, the protector of the voiceless. Be all things to all. You who know all people, you who know their requests, their households, and their needs. For you are the giver of life, bringing each person from non-being into being, sealing each person with love and sanctity. May we come to the light of your truth and glorify you, the giver of life, together with your Father and your all-holy and life-giving Spirit, now and ever, and unto the ages of ages. Amen.
Nice to see you again. This is never an easy situation. And it would be in your best interest to terminate the pregnancy. It will be like it never happened. If you want, I can schedule it for later.
Thank you, Your Eminence. Hey, folks, I want to just make a quick announcement. I wasn't planning on this. This isn't in my remarks, but it's very cold out there because I know it's cold backstage. There are first aid tents back there. If anybody gets so cold that it's unhealthy, you need to go to the first aid tent. And I just want to let you know that in our plan, we have warming buses so that if any of you are too cold that it's a health issue, you should get in a warming bus. So please just know that we have ways to keep you safe and keep you warm. So stay warm today. Okay. All right. Okay. So as I mentioned, I'm proud to serve as the president of the March for Life. Last year, things looked just a little bit different, where we had pro-life leaders marching through Washington, D.C., but I can't tell you how happy I am to welcome you all back. Can you tell? Because I've said it like 4 times already, okay? Now I want to talk for a minute about this year's theme. The theme of the March for Life is equality begins in the womb. The word equality is something that we're hearing a lot these days, but it's rarely defined. So we're talking about it around the dinner table. We're hearing about it in the halls of Congress. Whether it's about racial injustice or whether it's COVID-19, we're hearing a lot about equality. And these are topics that need to be discussed. And the truth is that we are all equal in dignity, regardless of skin color, disability status, socioeconomic background, or stage of life, including the earliest stages in life. Every life has inherent human dignity, and every life matters. Every life should be protected from the moment of conception or fertilization. To quote Martin Luther King, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Equality begins in the womb. Nearly 49 years ago, tomorrow, on January 22nd, 1973, our country was forever changed for the worse when 7 men on the United States Supreme Court handed down Roe v. Wade, marking American history and expanding abortion to all 50 states, legalizing abortion through all 3 trimesters until birth. We are hoping and praying that this year, 2022, will bring a historic change for life. The very fact that you're here in very cold weather, in blizzards and government shutdowns, even in pandemics, speaks to the fact that you are marching for the single most critical human rights abuse of our time. And I'll tell you what else it shows. Roe is not settled law. Your witness, the hundreds of thousands of you going before the Supreme Court every year, shows more than anything that I can think of 49 years later that Roe is not settled law. Your presence makes a difference. Thank you. As you are going to hear from some very powerful stories from our speakers today, the idea that abortion is good for women couldn't be further from the truth. What is true is that choosing life, while not always easy, is right and empowering for women. As we await the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health Organization, we need your support and dedication advocating for life more than ever before. Years of hard work and years of you coming here have brought us to this place today. And no matter how Dobbs is decided, your voice and the importance of that on the federal and state levels are all the more important. If Roe falls, the battle lines will change. But make no mistake, the fight for life will need to continue in the states and here in D.C. We need you to remain vigilant and ready for action. We need you to remain vigilant and ready for action. Are you up for the challenge? All right, then let me ask you a couple questions. Do you believe that the unborn person should have the right to life? If you do, let me hear you say yes. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Could you say that again, please? Say it loud enough so that the guy in the White House hears you, okay? Do you believe that equality begins in the womb? Let me hear you say yes. Today, will you march for the poorest of the poor, the most vulnerable, the unborn who cannot speak for themselves, babies in their mother's womb? Let me hear you say yes. Will you march so that abortion becomes unthinkable? Let me hear that one more time. Will you march? Excellent, excellent, thank you. I'm gonna ask you to take out your phones now. We're gonna have a little contest. And you'll be able to see some fun things on the screen. Open your text messages and text the word MARCH, M-A-R-C-H, to the number 73075. So text the word MARCH to 73075. In this historic year for life, it is more important than ever that we stay connected and that we take action on pro-life issues throughout the year. Your lawmakers, who you're going to hear from soon, need to hear from you on this issue. Your voice matters, and by texting MARCH to 73075, you're going to receive a text message back prompting you to sign up for our national network of hundreds of thousands of pro-life Americans all around the country, and we're going to keep you up to date on very important issues throughout the year. So do that now. Now, for the fun part, take a look. Father Mike is very fun. I got to meet him backstage. Okay, it's not his turn yet, but he's very excited to meet you all. I can tell you that much, yeah. Okay, look at the screen. Take a look just to see how far and wide you've traveled to be here with us today. This morning, I met an exchange student from Uzbekistan who came. I know 5 buses of you are from North Dakota. We've got people from all over the country and world. Nice. Once again, go ahead and text MARCH to 73075, and we'll see all the pin drops here on the map. We march today in defense of human rights and to celebrate the dignity and worth of every human life, because equality begins in the womb. Thank you, folks. Okay. All right, coming up on stage with me now are courageous pro-life leaders in the United States Congress who are standing for life. You know what? They don't often get applauded for standing for life, so let's do that one more time. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge each of them for their bravery and their commitment to ensuring that equality begins in the womb. Joining me here today are U.S. Senator James Langford of Oklahoma, Congresswoman Michelle Fischbach of Minnesota, Congresswoman Diana Harshbarger of Tennessee, Congressman Dan Crenshaw of Texas, Congresswoman Vicky Hartzler of Missouri. This is wonderful. Congressman Matthew Rosendale of Montana, Congresswoman Mary Miller of Illinois, Congressman Barry Moore of Alabama, Congressman Andy Harris of Maryland, Congressman Warren Davidson of Ohio, Congressman Mike Johnson of Louisiana, Congressman Andrew Clyde of Georgia, Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia, Congressman Mike Kelly of Pennsylvania, Congressman Scott Franklin of Florida, Congresswoman Yvette Harrell of New Mexico. We are also joined by two people who I am so grateful to know, Congresswoman Julia Letlow of Louisiana and Congressman Chris Smith of New Jersey. First up, we're going to have Congresswoman Julia Letlow, the first Republican woman elected to Congress from the state of Louisiana. A new and deep friend to the March for Life, Congresswoman.
Thank you. Who's ready to march for life? My name is Julia Letlow, and I'm honored to be here with all of you today as we collectively raise our voices in unity for those who deserve equal rights under the law, the unborn. Today, I can't help but reflect on the amazing experience of carrying my own first child and feeling for the first time those incredible flutters of life in my womb. I remember being filled with awe and wonder at the miracle growing inside of me while praying the scripture from Jeremiah 1:5 over my unborn son. The Lord said, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I believe that the Lord makes that promise for every one of our lives, and every soul is precious in His sight. I have always considered myself to be pro-life, but I never understood exactly what that truly meant until I saw my innocent and precious child take his first beautiful breaths of life. And in that moment, I truly understood the importance of why we must always actively fight for life. Now, in the coming months, we anticipate a monumental decision from the Supreme Court. We know that it has taken a great deal of work from all of you over the past 48 years to bring us to this one moment in time. There have been many, many ups and downs on this journey, but you never gave up. Your faith and perseverance has been our movement's guiding light. We are here today because of you. As we stand one step closer to saving the unborn, I encourage you, keep marching, keep advocating, keep praying, keep fighting, because ultimately we will prevail. And it's truly an honor to stand with you today. Thank you for all that you do to defend life. God bless you all.
Thank you very much. And Julia, what a beautiful, beautiful statement to all of these wonderful pro-life marchers here today. And as I look behind me, we have the greatest group of lawmakers, articulate, compassionate, fighting for life. So please give another round of applause for these members, James Longford and all the others. Special thanks to the March for Life and Jeannie Mancini for providing this amazing opportunity to again rally to protect women and babies from the violence of abortion. We meet this year with fresh hope and heightened expectation that by at least affirming the Mississippi pro-life law, and perhaps going even further with Texas, the Supreme Court may soon take a powerful step towards inclusion, justice, and respect for the weakest and most vulnerable. We are here to say equality begins in the womb, and the injustice of abortion need not be forever. Today, after decades of noble struggle and sacrifice, we are hopeful that government-sanctioned violence against children and the exploitation of women by abortion is nearing an end. Although, in a very real way, the struggle to defend innocent human life now enters a critically important new phase. We are at the tipping point, and we must seize the opportunity with all the faith and courage we can muster to face the serious challenges before us. Today, President Biden has weaponized the entire federal bureaucracy to aggressively promote abortion on demand at home and overseas, including the full court press, to force taxpayers to fund abortion on demand. Last September, the House of Representatives passed the Abortion on Demand Until Birth Act that not only legalizes late-term abortions, but would nullify every pro-life, modest restriction ever enacted. So we have challenges. And you know, all of you have worked on this, and some in our midst now as members did this as state legislators. This includes women's right to know laws in 35 states, parental involvement statutes in 37 states, pain-capable unborn child protection laws in 19 states, waiting periods in 26 states, sex selection abortion bans in 11 states, and of course funding, which they want to compel and coerce us to pay for abortions. For decades, my friends, and I know you know this, right up to this very moment, abortion supporters defend the indefensible with stolid resolve, which begs the question, why does dismembering a child with sharp knives, pulverizing a child with powerful suction devices, or chemically poisoning a baby with any number of toxic chemicals fails to elicit so much as a scintilla of empathy or compassion from the so-called pro-choice crowd? Medical research, as you all know, now is finding that unborn children feel pain at 15 weeks gestational age, and maybe even earlier. And thanks to ultrasound, the babies are far more visible than ever before. Children in the womb need to be treated as patients in need of diagnosis and treatment, not killed by abortion. So finally, I just say to all of you, in 1973, and I hope the court is listening, the Supreme Court abandoned women and babies to what is now the multi-billion-dollar abortion industry that has killed almost 63.5 million unborn babies, more than the entire population of Italy. In 2022, God willing, the Supreme Court can begin dismantling the culture of life they have imposed on America. God bless you, and march and pray.
Thank you for your tireless efforts to promote and defend life. This year's March for Life theme is Equality Begins in the Womb. Life is the most basic right to which we are endowed by our Creator and one of our nation's founding principles.
No matter where you're coming from today, you've joined this mission because you're as passionate as I am about protecting life.
Since 1974, folks like you, oftentimes students busing in from across the country, have gathered to stand shoulder to shoulder to show the world we value the sanctity of life of the unborn.
You're here to tell elected officials, bureaucrats, and all Americans we've had enough.
Along with millions of others across the country, we champion the rights of every child, born and unborn, because every American has the right for an equal chance to survive and thrive.
With hope and prayer, thousands have marched each year for decades at the annual March for Life.
They celebrate the dignity of human life and confront the ways our society fails to protect it.
You're making a statement not just about the sanctity of life, but about the diversity of Americans who care for this topic.
It spans generations, economic statuses, people of all ethnic backgrounds and experiences. They are all represented in this movement.
The sanctity of life is not a political fight. It's a fight for humanity itself. I stand firmly with you and all those who are marching.
You know, one of my core convictions is that every human being, no matter the circumstances of their birth or their station in life, has equal dignity and worth. And yes, that fundamental equality begins in the womb.
Each life is a blessing, and now more than ever, we must remain committed to doing everything we can to remain united in these efforts.
We are all fighting to give a voice to the voiceless. What's more American than that?
Each of us has a duty to protect the most vulnerable among us, even those who are not yet born.
Today, we mourn the loss of so many lives to abortion. But today, we should also be encouraged by how we are winning this battle.
I pray that each life will be valued for what it is, equal.
I will always vote to protect these rights because the right to life is the foundation upon which other rights are built.
Today in the Annual March for Life, we celebrate the sanctity of life and reaffirm our commitment to make sure every child's life is valued.
I stand with the men and women braving the cold to march for life in the spirit of compassion and mercy.
The most vulnerable among us, children in the womb, deserve protection.
I will continue to be a proud voice for the voiceless and work toward our mission to protect the sanctity of life.
Now, more than ever, we must continue to do what is right and push for pro-life policies.
Because when we stand united, we can give a voice to all the voiceless and protect all life, no matter how small.
I'm proud to stand with you. And I'm confident that in the end, right and justice will prevail because we have the truth on our side.
We believe everyone's equally loved by God and should be equally protected. That's why we don't give up. That's why we march for life.
You just know how heartwarming it is to have you folks come out every year, regardless of the weather, to march for life.
Thank you for the commitment that you have made to protect life.
May God bless you all. Keep up the important work.
Thank you, Congresswoman Letlow and Congressman Smith. Next up, we'll be hearing from three truly inspiring people. Speaking to us first is Toni Mcfadden. Toni is an author, and she's the founder of Relationships Matter, an organization that educates youth on how to live out healthy relationships. Toni's testimony, especially about chemical abortion and about finding hope and healing, I'm sure will inspire you. It inspired me the first time I heard her share this. Following Toni, we're going to hear from Kristen Wagner, my friend, the General Counsel with Alliance Defending Freedom, the largest legal organization committed to protecting free speech, religious freedom, parental rights, and the sanctity of life. And then finally in this threesome, we'll hear from the Honorable Dan Lipinski from Illinois. Congressman Lipinski served for 16 years in the House of Representatives and was the Democratic co-chair of the Congressional Pro-Life Caucus during his tenure. Welcome Toni, Kristen, and Congressman Lipinski.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am honored that I've been given the opportunity to share my story with you on such an historical day. There was a time in my life that I believed my life was more valuable than my unborn baby. My senior year in high school, I selfishly ended the life of my child. I believed the lie that if I aborted my child, my boyfriend would stay with me, my parents would never find out about my secret, and my life would go along as planned. And the abortion facility led me to believe the same. I was 7 weeks along. During my ultrasound, I was told that my baby was nothing, just the size of a pea. I was sent home with the chemical abortion pills, which ended up not working, causing me to experience severe hemorrhaging unexpectedly while I was in school. This was a month after taking those pills. This is the reality of abortion. It only destroys. My boyfriend walked out of my life without warning. my life began to unravel at the seams. This is what the abortion industry calls freedom. The greatest regret of my life was ending the life of my child. I believe all lives matter. And those who advocate for Black lives to matter and demand equal rights for Black men and women, that needs to start in the womb. Because we know the very act of abortion is wiping us out. As Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, it is not possible to be in favor of justice for some people and not in favor for justice for all people, and that includes preborn babies. I am so thankful that we have a God who redeems. And he can take the pain and the mistakes of our past and make something absolutely beautiful out of it. The boyfriend that broke up with me, he came back to me almost 9 years later to apologize to me. And less than a year later, this happened. We were able to honor our unborn baby at our wedding by lighting an extra candle to honor their life. And then God blessed us with more beautiful children, 3 who I have with me today. This is a picture of redemption. We are on the right side of history in this battle. I needed all of you then, and these babies still need you now. And we will not stop until abortion is made illegal and unthinkable. Thank you.
Year after year, we come to this place to take a stand, to witness to truth. And for 49 years, pro-life Americans have been building a great bridge together. A bridge between a time when over 60 million lives ago, our nation protected its innocence, and when it valued motherhood. And that day still coming when we will once again recognize the dignity of every human life. Equality begins in the womb with an understanding that life is God's gift to each of us, and that whatever our mental and physical strengths or limitations, whatever our challenges or our opportunities that we start out with, we are none of us accidents. It's time for our nation's leaders and our nation's laws to recognize that we will all come into being with a purpose, with a one-of-a-kind contribution that we can make alone, and that our government owes us the chance to accomplish that purpose and to live out that destiny. This year, at long last, that truth may once again be recognized in our law. The Dobbs case, argued just last month at the Supreme Court, has exposed a half-century of lies, bad science, and the devastating consequences that Roe versus Wade has wreaked on women, children, and families. Generations have relentlessly prayed and tirelessly labored for that day when Roe is no more, when the court returns to us as citizens our voice, and when mothers and children are cherished. Pray. Please pray. Pray as you've never prayed before, that the Supreme Court will have the moral courage to do what is right and to fully and to finally reverse Roe versus Wade, because the right to abortion has no basis in our Constitution. And in the meantime, we are going to put feet to those prayers today We will walk and we will continue to build a bridge to love, a bridge to grace, a bridge to a more compassionate future, to a nation that recognizes that every human life, to a government that supports women and protects their children and recognizes the value of that human life, and to a culture where life and freedom finally flourish.
Good afternoon. Hey, it's great to be with you again, and it always lifts my heart to see so many young people here. I want to give a special shout out to the students from St. Vincent College I met a couple days ago, but it's always great. You are the pro-life generation, and thanks for showing up. As you know, I spent 16 years in Congress as a pro-life Democrat, until my defense of babies in the wombs led to my loss in the 2020 Democratic primary. They came after me because they want to silence the voice of pro-life Democrats. But we will not be silenced. And we got Democrats for Life of America out here, wherever you're at, in this big crowd. Must be muffled in the big crowd here. But abortion cannot be, being pro-life cannot be a partisan issue. Equal protection for babies in the womb must be supported by all Americans, because our nation's founding document states that it's a self-evident truth that we are all created equal, no matter how small, weak, or poor, and that our Creator gives all of us a right to life. Now, no human institution is perfect, and sadly, our nation has not always secured equality for all under the law. This past Monday, we celebrated Martin Luther King Jr. Day to honor his fight for equality. And today, we are here to fight for equality for babies in the womb, whose most basic right to life is not being protected. We are here on their behalf, on the behalf of the smallest and weakest among us. And you all know it's not an easy fight, but despite all the insults hurled against us, we do it with love, love for babies and love for their mothers. Today we march to the Supreme Court, which this year has an opportunity to give the American people, for the first time in 50 years, the ability to recognize that equality begins in the womb. And finally, right the deadly injustice. Hopefully, next year, we'll be in a new era of building a culture of life, because Roe will be gone. But no matter what happens at the Supreme Court, we will continue to march. We'll continue to march to protect the unborn. We'll continue to march until our nation fulfills the promise of equality and the right to life for all. Until all babies and their mothers are protected. Thank you for being here. God bless.
How you guys doing out there? Staying warm? Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Tony, Kristen, and thank you, Congressman Lipinski. Look at all the young people who are here today. You guys are the pro-life generation. Remember to share your pictures on social media. Tell your story about why you're pro-life. That's what's going to change hearts and minds. Each of you has a story, and let people know why you're marching. Use that hashtag, #WhyWeMarch. Let the world know why you are marching today. Share your pictures on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Starting off our next couple of speakers, I'd like first to welcome Lisa Robertson, who you may know from the popular reality show Duck Dynasty. Lisa and her husband Al have worked in ministry for over 22 years and speak at pregnancy centers and pro-life events. Lisa's story is a powerful testimony of hope and healing, and it's impacted many lives. So following Lisa, I know you're going to be very excited to welcome to the stage Katie Shaw. Katie's parents chose life after learning that their daughter had a serious medical complication and Down syndrome while her mom was still pregnant. Her life is a witness to the dignity, equality, and immeasurable value of every person from the moment of conception. Welcome, Lisa, and then Katie.
I was 16, pregnant, unwed, vulnerable, and desperate to believe their lies. I was told 3 lies that day in the abortion clinic, 3 lies that would impact my life and the life of my unborn child. The first is it's just a glob of tissue, but that was a lie because we know that life begins at conception. The second was I was told your body will heal and be as good as new in a couple of days. That also was a lie. My body was never the same, and I was never able to carry a child to full term. The third, when you leave here today, you can forget this day ever happened. Again, that was a lie. That was 40 years ago, and every day of my life, I think of that day. These lies and many others nearly cost me my life, my family, my children that I carried and birthed. It did cost me 2 children and generations of grandchildren. But God, God rescued me, He forgave me, He redeemed me, and He also gave me a voice to speak out for the unborn. He gave me a voice to speak the truth and not lies. As the body of Christ, we need to be pro-love and pro-life in a pro-hate and a pro-choice world. We can't sit back any longer and allow our future generations to be aborted. We must act now. We are closer than ever to reversing Roe versus Wade and bringing life, the importance of every life, and the sanctity of life back to the hearts and minds of America. There is a mission field out there right outside your front door. It's in your own family. It's in your church. It's in your community and in your youth groups. We are not in a bubble. It's happening right beside us. It's in the diners and the restaurants that we frequent. It's in our hair and nail salons, in the grocery stores and shopping malls, and in those little boutiques that we like to shop in. Everywhere you look, young women are making decisions out of despair and because of the lies that they hear. We have to be pro-adoption as well. When Roe versus Wade is overturned, we will need families to adopt the children that are saved. Decide today, right here in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, that you will take up this fight for the life of the unborn and the countless women who will suffer, as I have, because of their decisions. I am blessed to be here with you to be a part of the pro-life movement. Now pick up your cross, the cause of Christ, and speak truth, Speak life, speak love, and speak Jesus. Thank you.
Are you guys ready? Good afternoon. My name is Katie Shaw from Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm a born and raised Hoosier. I am 36 years old and I have Down syndrome. I am happy to be here today in the fight for the dignity of human life for all unborn babies diagnosed with a disability or not. I believe equality for you, me, and everyone started in the womb. It started the day of conception when God gave us our soul. I am proud to be here to march to show the world that people with a disability or not need to have the chance to show the world God's plan for them. They need a chance to live their wonderful life outside the womb. My parents found out I had serious medical issues and Down syndrome when my mom was 5 months pregnant with me. My parents never thought about aborting me. They worked and planned with the doctors to help me have my wonderful life. Now, here I am, 36 years later, contributing to society, working full-time, enjoying family, friends, playing sports, and participating in a book club. And speaking out with you for the unborn. I even got to speak to our past pro-life president, President Trump, at the White House. As you can see, my equal life that started in the womb was meant to be. Many people don't know that there's a waiting list for babies with Down syndrome to be adopted, and yet over 80% of babies with Down syndrome are not given the chance to be adopted. They are aborted and their equality ends. It makes me very sad to think of all the friends I have that I might have lost if their parents did not believe equality starts in the womb. It makes me sadder to think of friends I miss because they were aborted. Friends, you and I have been given the chance to fight for equality in the womb. And by working together, we can make the difference in the world. As we march today, let us remember Psalm 139. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works that I know full well. In your book were written all the days that were formed for me when none of them has yet existed. Thank you. God bless all of you. You guys ready to march?
Thank you, Lisa and Katie. Your witness to the sanctity of life is beautiful. Thank you. Our next speaker, some of you may know, is Mike Seaver from the... Okay, I'm not sure that I've ever seen such an excited crowd. I have to be honest. This is my 10th March for Life, and I'm pretty sure I've never seen as an excitable crowd as you are, and I am so grateful. From the hit sitcom Growing Pains, actor and producer Kirk Cameron has appeared in dozens of television and movie productions and is a courageous voice for life for the unborn in Hollywood, which is no easy thing. But before Kirk comes up to the stage, we want to share with you a sneak peek into his exciting new production that we think you're going to love. Let's take a look.
Melissa, what are you going to do?
There's a birth mother on the line with a question for you. We have a son.
Are you sure?
He feels perfect.
Today's David's 18th birthday.
You want to talk to him?
I don't think he'd want to talk to me.
I know I'm not supposed to know everything, but tell me everything.
Dude, is that your birth mom?
She wants to meet.
Really?
God gave you to me and Mom as a gift, and you will always be our son.
Good afternoon, everybody. You know, I am from warm and sunny California, but it's also the land of loose nuts and bolts. I'd much rather be here in Washington, D.C. with you for the March of Life. There's no other place I'd rather be. Well, so excited to be here with you. I love to see your signs and your smiles and your hearts filled with love and compassion for moms and babies and families. Some of you, if you're under 20 years old, you might be saying, who's Mike Seaver? Well, listen, your mom and dad and I have known each other since the 1980s. Yeah, so just think of me as like the long-lost uncle you never knew you had. And some of you wouldn't even be here if it weren't for a movie called Fireproof. Ask your parents, they'll tell you the whole story. Why are we here? The Bible, the book that built America, says that those who hate God love death. But we're the family of faith. We love God, therefore we love life. And our hope is not in the White House. It's not in Congress. Our hope is not in the people who govern us or the laws that we make in this nation. Our hope is in the power of God working in the hearts of His people. And this issue of life is very personal for me. My wife is an adopted child. Chelsea was one doctor appointment away from not existing. Our first 4 children are also adopted. They were this close to not being here, and if my wife Chelsea had not been born, our 2 natural-born children would not exist either. So my 6 children and my wife are here as a result of loving, compassionate, and courageous people like you who are marching today at the March for Life. I hope that you have a chance later this year to see the movie Life Mark that is based on a true story. It is a story that is so much better than anything we ever could have scripted, but the makers of Fireproof and Courageous and War Room and I have teamed up to bring this film that highlights the value and preciousness of life in the womb and the beauty of adoption, explaining how one life can impact so many. You're adopted too. We're going to be marching together this afternoon. But after this day is over, I want us all to remember to continue the marching orders that have been given to us by our Commander-in-Chief, who lives in the heavenly places. And his executive orders trump all other executive orders. And the mandates from heaven remind us to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. That's what we will be doing this afternoon, and I'm proud to be with you. God bless you guys.
Thank you, Kirk. Next up, we'll welcome to the stage 2 very special speakers. This year, the iconic March for Life banner will be carried up Capitol Hill by pro-life students from Christendom College. And we are thrilled to have one of their students speaking to you today, George Schuberg. George is a senior at Christendom and serves as the president of their pro-life student club, Shield of Roses. Following George, we are going to hear from Michaela Cook. Michaela is a student at George Mason University, just across the river in Fairfax, Virginia, and she heroically chose life. In the past couple of years, she's going to share that story with you. She had a lot going against her and her daughter, but with the love and support of Mary's Shelter in Fredericksburg, Virginia, she chose life. And she'll tell you about that herself. Welcome, George, and then Michaela.
Thank you so much. My name is George Schuberg, and it is such an honor to be here representing Christendom College as we lead this year's March for Life. Together, we are all here to pray and fight for the unborn. To my peers specifically, your voice matters. We need youthful, positive voices every day to protect and defend the most vulnerable among us. Our generation has suffered tremendously from abortion, but do not be discouraged. We will see the end of abortion if we keep fighting for the equal rights of every human being from the moment of conception. However, we cannot just fight for the unborn once a year at the March for Life, but every single day. This includes praying in front of abortion clinics regularly. At Christendom, I've been blessed with the opportunity to do this every Saturday morning with my fellow students. It is such a great thing to see young people doing this, but we need more. If we are going to see the end of abortion, we, all of us, need to take a stand every day. We must pray for the innocent babies and their mothers, but also for their fathers. Today's culture calls this a woman's issue. However, a baby can only be made by a woman and a man. This is also a man's issue. Men, we need to rise up to the vocation to protect the unborn, to protect those who cannot protect themselves. Even though you might be persecuted for standing up for the truth, don't back down. This is both a woman and a man's issue. We need every person, man and woman, to join in this fight for the rights of the unborn. Be encouraged. We are on the side of the truth, and the truth always prevails. God bless you all for being here. Now let's fight for the unborn every day. Thank you.
My name is Michaela, and I am 19 years old. I currently live in Fairfax County, and I attend George Mason University. A little over a year ago, I found out I had become pregnant and went to an abortion clinic. I didn't know what other choice I had, and I was scared, but I knew that I didn't want to abort. I was lucky the staff there was very kind to me, and they let me come to my own conclusions, being supportive when I told them I didn't want to go through with it. In the following months, I was kicked out of my parents' home and moved from place to place, struggling to keep up with school and my hope wavering as to whether I made the right decision. I considered abortion again. How could I support a child when I had no place to stay, no healthy food to eat, and no money to pay for my education or theirs? That's when I found Mary's Shelter, Virginia. There, they gave me not just shelter, but guidance. They gave me a room of my own, counseled me, and encouraged me to continue my schooling. 9 months later, I had my daughter, Amy. Mary's Shelter continued to help me afterward, and they gave us both so much care and love. I know where I am now because of their support and the people who support them. On the other hand, I have to say that it wasn't easy. I was scared, hurt, and felt so alone for so long. So many times I've considered giving up life entirely. Somehow, though, I managed to keep going, and I'm glad I did. My daughter, Amy, is my pride and joy of my life. And she is my source of determination. I feel happier with her, and I can't imagine what my life would be like had I chosen the other option. Thank you so much.
You know, when I first met Michaela, she said something to me like, you know, I don't want to speak at the March for Life. And I hadn't even asked her to speak then, and we just knew somehow in God's providence it was going to work out that she was speaking at the March for Life. So thank you, Michaela. And thank you to George, too. Now, I know that many of you are very excited to... I can't even get it out. Okay. Do you guys know who this guy is? Okay. I'm telling you, you guys are so out of control in the best sort of way. Thank you. Okay. So let me say that again. I know many of you are excited to hear from our last speaker of the day. He's a priest in the Diocese of Duluth. He's chaplain at the University of Minnesota and the host of the national and international chart-topping podcast,
Bible in a Year. Please help me welcome to the podium Father Mike Schmitz.
Wow, it is an honor, incredible honor to be able to be here with you today. You guys have been troopers. It's so cold, and there's no chairs anywhere. That's the hard part. You know, the first speech I ever gave in my entire life was in 8th grade, and we got a chance to choose any topic, any argument, any position. And the topic that I chose in 8th grade was I chose to talk about the dignity of human life from natural conception to natural death and the evil of abortion and euthanasia. And it wasn't like much of a stretch because, you know, growing up, my mom, we had a fridge, like most people have refrigerators, right? And so on the fridge were the normal things, pictures of the kids, pictures, you know, that we drew and whatnot. But there were 3 images my mom had on our fridge. The first one was of a baby that was only weeks old that had died because of an ectopic pregnancy. And you could see so clearly this child had just been conceived weeks before, but was so clearly, this is a person, that this is not only a human baby, this is a human person that mattered. The second image was a cartoon my mom had on the fridge, and it was of a person standing there with a bunch of buttons, and one of the buttons said, you save the whales, another button said, save the baby seals, another button said, save the turtles, and the fourth button said, pro-choice. And the caption was, I find it so difficult to talk to pro-choicers because I find that their logic is not as consistent as mine. And the third image was an image of a garbage bag that was wide open. And in that garbage bag were the remains of children that had been aborted and were being thrown away in the trash. But some pro-lifers had rescued the remains of those babies to treat them like people. Because those babies matter, because people matter. So that's why Mom put on her fridge. And those images are there, you know, because of this fact, because people matter. And people matter to my mom do this because of a woman named Helen Anderson. In 1973, Helen Anderson was about 50 years old, and she was the head nurse at a hospital called Sinai Hospital in the Twin Cities in Minnesota. And in 1973, that hospital decided to begin performing abortions. And Helen, she knew that people mattered. She knew that children mattered. She knew that her nurses mattered. And so she hated the fact that this hospital that had done such good in that world, in that part of the world, was now about to do so much evil. And they were forcing her nurses to participate in abortions. They were forcing her nurses to carry the remains of these children to be disposed. And so she went to the board of directors and she said, this needs to stop. Either you stop doing abortions or I'm leaving. And in that moment, Helen stood. And they said, you can leave. And so in that moment, Helen walked. And I have to tell you, that it broke her heart. It almost destroyed her life. She never went back to nursing. Not to tell stories out of school. Or her son told me that he believes that if it wasn't for her faith, she might have even ended her own life. But she stood. And she walked. And that matters. Because every person matters. Every life matters. But it broke her heart, and I think that's why we're here too, right? I think we're here because abortion and what it's done has broken our hearts. And I know so many people here, you're standing here because you know the dignity of human life, and so many people are among us because this story is part of your story. Because you found yourself at one point in a place where it seemed like life was an impossible choice. And so I know that we're surrounded by men and women who have chosen abortion. Listen, here's what you need to know. You're supposed to be here. You matter. You belong here. No matter what your past is you are still loved. You need to know this. You are still loved, and you still matter. There's a young woman I was in communication with recently, and she said, she knew I was coming out here. She said, here's what you need to do, Father. She said, you need to tell them what you told me 12 years ago. 12 years ago, this young woman found herself in a crisis pregnancy. She found herself in a place of deep shame. She describes it as a place of deep shame where she said, all these choices I made led me to this moment where she found herself pregnant, and she was scared and she was alone, and every one of her family members and almost all of her friends were saying, just get rid of it. If you do this, if you get rid of it, it won't matter anymore. She said, but Father, you said to me, you told me that my baby mattered. You told me, when I told you I didn't want to be a mom, you told me you're already a mom. And she says, you need to tell those women who are in that moment, they're already a mom. And she said, I thought I hated my baby. And I realized these many years later, I didn't hate my baby. I hated the circumstances in which I found myself. I didn't hate my baby. I was ashamed of myself. That young woman 12 years ago, she gave her son to a couple who adopted him and have loved him. And he has blessed their life, and they've blessed his life. I've met him. He's an incredible young man. And she said, they need to know that my son is a gift from God himself. But she also said that everyone needs to remember, they need to be reminded of the fact that regardless of your choices, you are still loved and you still matter. And that's why we're standing here. That's why we're walking here. And the big question, of course, can be, we're going to stand and we're going to walk. What does it matter? Like, what does it do? Is a good question. I think it's good to ask the question, what does it matter? What does it do? You know,
Give it up for Father Mike Schmitz one last time. That's right. I think he'll be very embarrassed by that, but I agree. Thank you, Father Mike. Now, you may have noticed that the stage is slowly filling up behind me with some familiar faces. The pro-life movement is made up of incredibly dedicated individuals who work day in and day out to build a culture of life in our country and around the world. The mission of the March for Life is to make abortion unthinkable by uniting, equipping, and mobilizing people in the pro-life, in the public square. Unite. Unity is at the heart of our mission of the organization. Every single one of these courageous leaders coming up here and standing on these risers represents a different organization with a specific mission and the urgent task of building a culture of life. Each organization is unique and meets a different need in the fight to protect the most vulnerable. And with the loss of over 62 million Americans to abortion, there's so much work ahead of the pro-life movement and pro-life people around the country. So by inviting each organization up to stage, we desire to bring together all of the pro-life groups and to stand in solidarity as we stand in a unified front to build a culture of life. And now we would like to honor you at the March for Life, all of you and all of your wonderful work that you're doing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your life-saving mission and your invaluable work. We are better and stronger together in this fight. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you for the work that all of you do day in and day out to make abortion unthinkable. Thank you. Thank you. We are most grateful. All right. Now, we're almost at the part that you guys have come for, which is to march, right? Okay. Before we march, I have a few administrative announcements. First, if you have any trash, please drop it in the trash cans in the mall. We want to build a culture of life, even how we're treating things, and to show everybody that we're respectful to the mall here. Second, you can probably see that coordinating the March for Life requires many resources, and that we expect that demand to grow as we're growing into the states. To that end, anybody who would consider, we would be just abundantly grateful if you'd consider making a financial gift to the march today. You can text GIVE, G-I-V-E, to 73075, and you can do that right now. Text GIVE to 73075. If you're here in person, you will also have several opportunities along the parade route. You'll see Knights of Columbus with buckets, and every penny counts. So thank you so much to that end for anything that you'll do to help us end abortion.
Yep.
Please know how appreciative of your support we are. And finally, at the conclusion of the rally, please follow the directions of our marshals who will point you in the direction of the march. There are a lot of you today, so please follow their lead so that we can all march safely to the Supreme Court. Of course, our marshals, this is a little sad, I'm sorry. Our marshals are down one very devoted servant this year. One of our longtime board members of the March for Life, Tom Hogan, went home to heaven just a few weeks ago. We march today know that Tom's looking down on us and keeping us in line. Okay. All right, and then to lead us in closing prayer, please join me in welcoming Sissy Graham Lynch. Hi, Sissy. Sissy is the Senior Advisor and Ministry Spokesperson for the Billy Graham Evangelical Association and Samaritan's Purse, and the granddaughter of Billy Graham, the Reverend Billy Graham. Following Sissy, we'll finish our rally together in singing God Bless America, led again by our special guest joining us virtually, award-winning musical artist, Matthew West. Thank you.
Are y'all ready to march? Well, join me as we close this amazing event in prayer. God, we thank you for blessing this nation far greater than we have ever deserved, and blessing us with the freedom to gather here today to remember every precious life. Lord, we know that you are the author and creator of all life, that you've created us in your image, and we know as a nation that we have sinned, and we humble ourselves before you asking for forgiveness. And God, we know that you are a God who loves, you are a God who forgives, and you see us right where we are. And Lord, I pray for those women right now who need to know that you are there, who feel alone and who feel desperate. Lord, that they will feel your love and know that there is hope in you.
Can I stop,
Lord,
Dan?
I thank you for every individual here and every community that has fought for life in their communities, who have loved on women and children and done it with grace and with truth. But Lord, we are so thankful for the men and women who fight in this city.
Hi, Jeannie Mancini. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Billy.
So we are here today at the March for Life, and this is one of the most exciting annual events for the pro-life movement. How many people do you expect out generally at this event every year?
Well, we believe that we have over 100,000 that participate every year, and we get that estimate from bus permits, from working with the city to know how many are coming in to stay at hotels versus a typical, Thursday night, Friday night, and then some of the major events that are happening in the city, and then even the metro, we get numbers on their upticks in ridership as well. So it looks to be somewhere in the realm of a little bit over 100,000, give or take a few. If there's a blizzard, maybe a little bit less. If there's a government shutdown, less. If there's a major Supreme Court case looming, maybe more. A president speaking, maybe more. So it just depends on the particular year.
Look, and I mean, this year is different than it's been in the past with COVID, and everything has changed so much. What are you expecting this year's march to look like, for today? Because I know so many people are excited to be here physically again.
I think this is a banner year I haven't seen the enthusiasm of the movement as it is now ever in my lifetime. And especially with the Supreme Court case, Dobbs v. Jackson Women's Health, I think that pro-life America is excited and they see a very important and real victory within reach. I mean, no one, knows the future, but the excitement is palpable. And so I think that the March for Life this year is a banner year.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about those numbers because the numbers you cited are incredibly impressive numbers. And when you look at photos and anybody who's been to the March for Life, I can't think of a lot of other events that have that many people on the street marching for a cause. It often seems like the mainstream media don't give quite a bit of attention to the march. I would love for you to reflect on that or respond to that, why that may be.
Right. So, well, correct. So we're the only event that I'm aware of that shuts down Washington, D.C. during a weekday. I mean, we literally shut down Constitution Avenue, the 14th Street, all of these different major passways coming into the city every year. So this isn't a one-off event. I mean, here, it's sad that we're about to have our 49th annual March for Life, but we've been doing this for 49 years and we only grow every single year. So Billy, I'm not aware of any other event like this in DC. And where I think our media coverage has grown in the past few years, in part because of some of the major speakers that we've gotten and some of the major events happening, and social media kind of smokes them out, smokes out mainstream media. We've certainly seen an uptick in coverage, but is it adequate? No. Or accurate? No. I mean, if we have like a different kind of march the day after with maybe 1,000 people coming out, does it sometimes get more coverage in the mainstream media? Yes. So we're working against all these things. And that's why, for your viewers and for your listeners, it's so important that they jump in and participate. So one of the things we do at every single March for Life is we use this common, what we call a hashtag. Probably most of your viewers know what this is. It just means if you're involved in social media, it's kind of a common word or term. And our hashtag is why we march. Why we march, all one word. The reason that we choose that hashtag is so that people can tell their personal stories about why they're pro-life, whether or not they're actually at the march in person. It's really impressive if they can show pictures of being at the march in person and all the positive marchers that are there and the young marchers. But regardless of whether they're there in person, all of us have a reason that we're pro-life, and many of us have a story, and all of the stories are just beautiful, and stories are what convert hearts. So it's my hope and my prayer that everyone listening will use that hashtag why we march and tell their story, because you never know who's going to see that. You never know whose heart and whose mind is going to change to life because of your story. So I really, really encourage your listeners and viewers to participate in that way.
Yeah, you mentioned the importance of stories, and it's made me think of the last few years. It seems like there's been a major uptick in the number of people, the number of survivors, abortion survivors who are stepping out and telling their stories. I want to ask why, in your opinion, it's so critical for people to hear those stories, not just of people who are pro-life and can make all of the logical arguments or the moral arguments, but why, from experience, from someone who has survived, is it important to hear their stories?
I think that stories change hearts, and not to paint things in, sort of black and white, because they're never really black and white. But I would say the pro-abortion industry does a pretty good job of telling stories, and our side often isn't as good at that. And we need to know that these are difficult issues, that we struggle with them, but how they impact people, and that life is empowering. It's not easy. Our theme a few years ago, it was one of my all-time favorite themes. It was Love Saves Lives. And it was really sort of showing how sacrifice begets fruit and how it isn't easy to choose life, especially when you're experiencing an unexpected pregnancy, but that it's the right choice and it's empowering and it uplifts us and all of these things. And so I think those are the kinds of stories that need to be told. And to me, I just think when you can read about something and you can read sort of the philosophical underpinnings of why something's true. But when you either experience it yourself or see it in a lived reality, it's different. It's just embodied totally different and in a personal way. And for me, it changes my heart even with different things in my life.
Well, yeah, stories matter. This is how, as you were saying, the other side of the debate, they've done a great job in Hollywood and through other measures of being able to take those stories, make people feel emotion and shift viewpoints. I mean, that is really what art has done in so many ways. And as I think about stories, though, I also wanted to cycle back to what you were saying, that this is the 49th March. There's a deep history and story to the March for Life, and I'm sure that people watching may want to know a little bit about that. Can you take us through sort of the early years of the march, how it came to be?
Love to. So the very first March for Life was in 1974, January 22nd. Nellie Gray was the founder of the March for Life. She was an attorney, worked for the government. She was in her late 40s when she founded the march. A few months before the first march, a couple of, well, more than about a dozen people gathered in her townhouse on Capitol Hill and discussed the anniversary of Roe coming up. And they didn't want that terrible anniversary to go unnoticed or unpassed without standing up for the unborn. And so they decided, let's do a march. At the time, they thought that it would be like a one-off or a two-off event because the decision of Roe v. Wade, back then they understood it was really a decision of judicial activism outside of the parameters of what the Supreme Court is called to do, which is just to interpret the Constitution, not to create things that aren't in the Constitution, which is really, in fairness, what Roe did. So they didn't think that Roe would stand for long. They thought it would go after a year or two. And so they planned this, one-time, two-time event, and were shocked, that this event continued. The flip side, of course, is that as the event continued, it grew and grew and grew and grew and grew and became younger in demographics. And so where, the quote unquote other side, who are really our brothers and sisters, but their hearts aren't changed to this yet. But abortion proponents, let's put it that way. Abortion proponents thought that we would become kind of not become desensitized to abortion, like that it would become normal and we would just go away. We'd stop marching when we saw that Roe stood for a few years. But the opposite happened. I mean, more and more people come to the march every year, even though we're the 49th. I can't think of a more powerful visual statement that Roe is not settled law than the, hundreds of thousands of marchers that are going before the Supreme Court, standing for this human rights abuse every year. So throughout the years, we've had all sorts of interesting things happen. Every year is different, whether it's a government shutdown or the year after 9/11. I would say some of the most compelling moments of the history of the March for Life have to do with some of the conversion stories. So Norma Mccorvey, the Roe of Roe v. Wade, spoke at the March for Life 3 times. Of course, she had a massive conversion to life. Mary Kano of, so Roe v. Wade, Doe v. Bolton were the two major court cases that came out on January 22nd, 1973. So Mary Kano was the Doe of Doe v. Bolton. She also spoke at the March for Life. And then Bernard Nathanson, who is attributed, he worked for NARAL Pro-Choice America, which is basically they were like the legal architects of legalized abortion in the United States. And Bernard Nathanson did thousands and thousands of abortions, and he had a massive conversion too. He was a doctor, and he also spoke at the March for Life. So we've had these beautiful testimonies of people coming to believe in the truth and the inherent dignity of the human person. And then, and sorry, I'm giving a very long-winded answer, but the history of the March.
No, it's great. It helps us understand the history. It's wonderful.
There's such a history. Yeah. We've definitely, throughout the years, we've grown and grown. Our demographics have gotten younger. We're such a very, very young and joyful march. And then most recently, we started having, the very high level White House officials join the march. We've always had politicians, and we've tried to get people on both sides of the aisle. We're not We're non-sectarian, so we're not inherently religious, and we're nonpartisan, the March for Life, but we go with the pro-life politicians, pro-life elected officials. So we were blessed when Vice President Pence came and spoke, the first standing vice president of the United States ever to address marchers in person. And then we were astonished when President Trump, despite his security detail telling him that they didn't think it was the best idea, coming in person to the March for Life in 2020. And so, wherever you stand on President Trump, and people have all sorts of opinions, he is the first leader of the free world to come.
All right. Once again, you are watching CBN's live coverage. That was our interview with March for Life President Jeannie Mancini there, who you saw at the march. And the march is now underway. Billy Hallowell and goins-phillips from CBN's Faithwire are there, and we'll be connecting with them momentarily. As you can see, enormous crowd out there. And for those of you who watch the speeches, you can see that this crowd is young, they are enthusiastic, and they are large. They are just a huge, huge crowd. And we are walking it right now, and we will be talking to some of the participants in that march here as we go along. And you can see them on the ground now. And just real quick before we go down to those guys who are braving the cold for you, so you can see this march in person here, well, virtually, but basically being able to attend it without attending it. So Tony Mcfadden, incredible testimony during the rally just an hour ago. Lisa Robertson from Duck Dynasty sharing her own personal story with abortion. Very, very powerful stuff. But right now I want to send it on down to goins-phillips and Billy Hallowell. Guys, the march is underway.
Yeah. So there are tons of people here, all kinds of different groups. And like you mentioned, Dan, so many of them are younger. They're younger and younger. I think we're having a bit of a tech issue, but we'll keep going. The march is, like I said, already underway, and you can pan out and look at all of this crowd of people. And like I said, so many of them are high schoolers and college students. So there definitely is a lot of momentum, and we've heard that from so many of the people we've talked to, both on the stage and in the studio.
All right, so there you see it. We are on the ground, as I said, and we will be going through this march as it goes all the way to the Supreme Court. And so, yeah, so we will keep this march, let you walk along with it, with us. And I want to let you also know that we'll have QR codes up throughout the march here that we'd love to check out. In particular, we would love for you to have a look at cbnfaithinaction.com. This is where you can make your voice heard on important issues such as the pro-life issue, obviously an issue that matters greatly to the Christian audience and to the CBN audience. So head on over to CBN Faith in Action, have your voice heard, and you know, make your voice heard, because it is such a key issue. And you know, the cbnfaithinaction.com website, there are 3 key things there, action items in specific that matter to this issue, and it's stopping taxpayer-funded abortion, saving babies who feel pain, protecting babies born alive. You heard all bits and pieces of those kinds of issues in the speeches during the last hour, and as you can see now, here we are on the ground with the March for Life, and we're going to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. So I'm just going to throw it on down to them, Dan, and we will let you walk along and experience the March for Life 2022, which didn't happen last year because of the pandemic.
So we are, like I said, marching along with the people. The rally just ended and the march just got underway, and we're heading toward the U.S. Supreme Court, where ultimately the march will end. And you can see so many people already marching down with different signs, so many faith-based groups here, so many college students, high schoolers. It is a diverse group of people from all different walks of life, different ideologies, but we're here to carry the march from this point at the Washington Memorial all the way to the Supreme Court.
You know, what's really remarkable is looking at and seeing all of these people, hearing from the lawmakers who are very, very positive about the direction that the Supreme Court is headed in the Dobbs case. We'll get that determination in June. And so as you can see, people are streaming out here along the way, as Trey said. Lots of young people. That's something that's really come through in recent years. You heard Jeannie Mancini say that as well, that it's just been generations of young individuals coming out for this, which is pretty remarkable. As you can see, the street is pretty filled with people here, and there's still people coming out from the rally making their way toward the Supreme Court. You can see ahead of us the U.S. Capitol.
Yeah. Can you guys read the story when you have a chance? Cool, thank you.
Like, this is Trey here. I think one of the most interesting things about this is that it's happening as the Supreme Court considers the Dobbs case. So that's something that Billy, too, mentioned. The momentum seems to be moving in the direction of the pro-life movement. So we'll see what happens when the Supreme Court makes their ruling, which is expected sometime this summer, probably in June. But we talked to representatives in office, Representative Chris Smith in New Jersey, Julie Letlow in Louisiana, and both of them are very optimistic about the potential to overturn Roe v. Wade, and that's influencing a lot of the dynamic here today at the March for Life.
No fake news. No fake CBN.
So Trey, what has been the most inspirational part of this for you?
The most interesting? I think it's interesting, again, I've mentioned this before, but to see the young people here, the momentum and the fact that this movement has changed over the years. Like it's not just the older generation. That was what one of the people I spoke to, Kristen Hawkins at Students for Life. She said it's not just the older people anymore. She said, I'm even aging out, and she's younger, but she said younger and younger people, Gen Z is interested in this because they're activist generations. And this is something that they care about, and it's resonating with them.
Yeah, when you talk about reaching the next generation, that's been a goal of the pro-life movement, and what you can see today is that has been successful. Streams of young people throughout. I'm the pro-life generation. That's a sign we've seen pretty frequently today. How you guys doing today? Where are you from?
Plymouth, Michigan.
Plymouth, Michigan. Long way out here. What brings you guys out today?
The march. I'd rather not be on this.
Hi, how are you? What brings you out here today?
I'm here to march for those who aren't able to march, either because, they're not born, they've been aborted, or for those who still are not ready to speak about what they've been through.
Thank you very much for coming out here today. Thanks for sharing with us.
Thanks for being here. Ah.
Yeah, I really cannot get over the diversity of location as well, Trey. How many people here are from all over the country, all different cities, coming out here to make their voices heard.
Yeah, absolutely. And there are so many different people who have so many different stories about why they're choosing to be here. We talked to one nurse who used to be an abortionist or worked in an abortion clinic and now is pro-life. So we're talking to people who have experience with the abortion industry but have changed their mind, and then others who they survived abortions. They're part of the pro-life movement. We've seen people who are part of the feminist movement who have chosen to partner up with believers and Christians and join up on this issue. So, there's a whole range of people here telling their stories, and it's important to highlight that, and that's what we're trying to do at CBN today.
Well, I want to underscore for those who are watching this right now that it is very cold in Washington, D.C. It is, gosh, it was about 18 degrees this morning, and people are out here, and, you know, it's a big crowd. They're trying to keep as warm as they can, but they believe in this cause, and that is what brings them out here today to be here at the March for Life. You know, we're in a sea right now of young people, as we've said numerous times, and it's just amazing to see that passion and that interest and intrigue among this generation, this rising generation. Many of the speakers we spoke with today said, look, we've got to change people's hearts. That's what this is about. It's not just changing laws, it's changing hearts. And, you know, you're seeing the fruits of that here today at the March. Right now we're at a little bit of a standstill as we make our way through. That's how many people are here.
Look, and I think that's something that gets lost in this conversation, right? I mean, we have, with this march, the people here, the protesters, demonstrators, they have shut down Washington, D.C., and it gets no attention from the mainstream press, at least not large-scale attention. It's the biggest event that nobody seems to know about if you turn on the mainstream media, and that's part of the reason why CBN, a Christian Broadcasting Network, and Faithwire, why we've chosen to be here, because we want to bring this to you so that you can see what's happening, and you can see the momentum for the pro-life movement actually happening in real time.
We can hear music now, parade music coming, and it looks like there's a massive band up ahead. We'll try to get some shots of it as we get closer if we can. Sort of capturing the excitement of the day. Again, that anticipation of what's going to happen in the Dobbs case as we inch towards June and the Supreme Court takes really what could be the most consequential look at Roe versus Wade that we've seen in decades. What's your name? What's your name? Where are you from?
My name's Helena. I'm from Detroit, Michigan.
Detroit, Michigan. What brings you out to the march today?
So I'm a campus minister at a Catholic school in Plymouth, Michigan, and I brought my students to March for Life.
How many students are here with you?
There's about 19 of us, 19 kids. Yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. We would say how many young people here at the march?
I started coming here at 14 years old. So,
wow, so you started young?
Since. Yep, I did. Yeah.
That's amazing. What was the most rewarding part of that for you as a young person?
I think it was very touching for me to see so many young people fighting for the same cause, and to see the grandness of the church and Christianity and people of the same value system. It was really amazing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing with us. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Nice to meet you guys.
Nice to meet you. Another thing to mention, one of the speakers, Father Mike Schmitz, he has, it's really pretty incredible, one of the, if not the most popular podcasts right now in the world. Quite often it ranks #1 on Apple and iTunes. And so we heard from him. We heard from lots of great speakers on the stage there today. And as you'll see over to the right, we're going to pan over there. You can see the scope and the size of this audience. I mean, it's massive. And this is the first shot that we're really getting from this end, seeing just how many people are flooding the streets. And as Trey said, really shutting down Washington.
So I'm talking right now with someone who is at the rally. I don't know, what's your first name?
Pauline.
Okay, so why are you here at the March for Life?
To stand up for the unborn who don't have a voice. I feel we have a responsibility to do it. In particular for the next generation coming up who have not been formed well in their faith, I feel we have to stand for them and show it by example.
Look, and I think faith is such an important part of this debate. You could be anywhere, but you're choosing to be in freezing cold Washington, D.C., and it's a beautiful place to be, and it's incredible to see how many people are here, but it doesn't get a lot of mainstream media attention. Why do you think that is?
Because they don't want God in the media or in our lives. They've pushed him aside in all public office, public schools, and that's why we're at the point we're at today with our laws. So this is about, putting God first. Life is so important, and standing for the unborn to have the right laws that our country was formed under, one nation under God with liberty and justice for all, especially the unborn.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with us. Look, I think we're seeing so much of that as people who are very outspoken about their faith, about how that's informed their view of the pro-life issue. Look, it's not just that they're against abortion from a policy standpoint. So many of these people are against abortion because they see the sanctity of human life from natural birth, from conception, and to natural death. So I think it's important to highlight that aspect of the conversation. And that was one of the things that Julia Letlow, Billy talked with her a little while ago, and she talked about how faith is a huge factor here and why she's fighting to protect life in her district and on Congress.
Yeah. I can toss to it.
Okay.
All right, so as we're with Trey Goins-Phillips and Billy Hallowell down there on the ground, and guys, I don't know if you can hear me, but keep trying to get the cameraman to get a shot of that crowd as high up as possible. I know it's difficult from your vantage point, but it's really amazing to see just this steady stream of people going through. It's just you saw it backlogged up a couple times already. But Trey just mentioned that interview with Congressman Letlow, and so we want to take a look at that here. We'll keep the feed up while we have this interview, and I want you all to check this out.
You gotta understand.
You gotta understand.
Experience in DC, and it was just electric. I'm excited to be a part of it.
So why was it important for you to be here today?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've always considered myself to be pro-life. I grew up in a strong Christian family who taught me those values young. But it wasn't until I became a mother and I held my firstborn child for the first time and just saw the miracle that is life, that I knew it wasn't enough for me to just say that I'm pro-life. I wanted to be a true advocate for the cause. And now serving in Congress, I get to do that every single day and fight for those who don't have a voice.
What has that been like, serving in Congress? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, there is a lot of darkness right now, as you know, but God calls us to be a light. And that I'm just making sure that I'm fighting every day to make sure that we're fighting for those who don't have a voice, like I said, the unborn. So there is a bit of darkness, but I want you to be encouraged. There is light, and we will prevail.
You don't hear that a lot in politics. I want you to be encouraged. That's great. Well, it's interesting, too, because obviously the Supreme Court right now, they're going to be making a big determination on Roe in June. Right. And leading up to that, what's going on in Congress? I'm kind of interested to hear behind the scenes, the energy, the conversation.
Sure. Well, there's a lot of nervousness on the other side of the aisle, as you can imagine, but the momentum is so great for us. I mean, and you think about it, the last 48 years, all of the people that have led up to this one moment in time and worked so hard, and I can't help but think about them over those years thinking, gosh, what is this even mattering, what I'm doing, getting up every day and fighting? And yes, it has, because here we are for such a time as this and leading up to this very moment. I could not be more ecstatic, and I just want to encourage people, it's the perfect example of why you should never give up.
I love that. All right, last question for
Sure.
you. As you're kind of entering into Congress, entering into this political arena,
Right.
and I love to ask people this because it's sort of a 30,000-foot question, but
Sure.
what do you want your legacy to be? You're at the start of it, but what are you hoping the impact is of your service?
Right. If people say one thing about me is that she served her people, and it wasn't about her. I think if they say that about me, then I've done everything that I was supposed to do here.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Everyone else, make sure you continue watching the live stream.
That's right.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that interview, guys. Look at this crowd. I did direct our camera crew to get a vantage point, and so that is apparently what they did. Walked right up those steps there and took a look, and man, that gives you some perspective on just the size. Like, that's just one small portion of this march, and look at that. That is absolutely incredible. So I'm gonna toss it back down to Billy and Trey. Billy, why don't you guys just tell me, or Trey, whoever's able to hear this right now, tell us kind of where you're at in the march route and where the route is going, if you know, or if you're just following the hordes of pro-lifers there. But again, incredible, as Trey mentioned, that this march neglects to get the national coverage in the national media that it typically does not get. Obviously, I'm not monitoring it right now, so I don't really know what they're doing, but in years past, that's just the judgment that I've seen. And when you look at any movement with this sheer number of people, I mean, just look at that. Incredible, absolutely incredible. And for it to get largely ignored is really
Yeah,
speaks
it's
volumes.
We are on the steps right now of the National Archives, and we've paused to take in the sites you just described, Dan. It is a sea of people, all sorts of signs that, placards with pro-life messages. I'm 100% pro-life. I mean, it's just these incredible sites, and it's pretty amazing to be able to sort of stand here and watch them move down the road. It's a lot harder to see it when you're in the midst of it.
Yeah, the crowd here is absolutely enormous, and I'm just looking at some of the signs. One that says "I'm a child, not a choice." Others that are stronger, it says "Abortion is not murder." Love them both from Live Action is another sign. Legality does not equal morality is one that I've seen a couple times. So there certainly is an incredible amount of momentum. This street is completely, like, you can't even see the street. If you're watching our live stream right now, you can tell that you cannot even tell there's pavement there. There are so many people here, wall to wall, everywhere across Washington, D.C., and the march is, like Billy said, right now going right by the National Archives in Washington, D.C., all, of course, on the way to the U.S. Supreme Court building where it will end the march today.
All right, well, fantastic stuff, guys. We're going to stay here on the ground, as we promised, that you could walk along the march, and thankfully, those of us in studios and in our homes watching this on the live stream, we can make our voice heard in the comforts of our own home. But, like you guys have mentioned, it is freezing out there. It is absolutely frigid today, and this has happened in the past on these March for Lives where the weather has been, terrible, wet, rainy, or snowy, or cold. And people are just still out there. It just shows you how much they care about this issue. They are willing to spend an entire day out there in the freezing cold. So, guys, I want you, when you're going around and you're interacting, I'm going to toss it back down to you in a second here, but when you're walking the crowd here and you talk to people, it'd be interesting also to know, this is my question from up here in the booth, which speakers resonated with them as well, in addition to some of these reasons that we're hearing that people give you guys as to why they came down here. But I'd also be interested to know which ones of those speakers kind of really resonated them, some of the things that maybe they heard that really moved them. I know I was moved. There were some incredible testimonies there. So I'll throw it back down to you guys as you continue on the march. You're watching the March for Life Live 2022. This is our live stream here on CBN News. We're glad you're here, and enjoy the march.
Yeah, one of the amazing things about the speakers is they really knocked it out of the park. Every speaker who spoke had a major portion of the audience interested in what they had to say.
Hi, we're talking with a protester here. What's your first name?
Sophia.
Sophia, tell us why you've chosen to be here and why you have the sign that you have.
As a Christian, we are just supposed to stand for all those who can't stand for themselves, and that's in the unborn specifically. And it's in the Bible to be pro-life, and it's scientifically proven to be pro-life as well. So that's why I have this sign in here, and as the sign says, abortion is the only surgery that you're not supposed to survive. And it's awful and it needs to be changed, and Roe needs to go.
Yeah, and the Supreme Court is considering that case right now, Dobbs, that could end up with the overturning of the precedent set by Roe. How do you think this year is different from maybe the past pro-life March for Life? It seems like there's more momentum here.
Yeah, I definitely see that there's more momentum here after being to the past couple ones versus now. I just really think people have hope that Roe is going to change, and people know that they need to come here and go step on the steps of the Supreme Court to show the Supreme Court justices what we want.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sophia. I appreciate it. Look, there are so many people who are telling these stories, and the momentum certainly is in the favor of the pro-life movement as we continue to watch this march. I mean, just a river of people here that are pouring down Washington, D.C.
All right, well, as Billy and Trey, who are down there in the March for Life, covering that for y'all and heading all the way down to the Supreme Court, as we just mentioned, they caught up with several of the people involved in today's march earlier today. And so wanted to bring you a conversation that Billy and Trey, well, actually, I believe it was just Trey, had with Kirk Cameron, who was one of the speakers during today's march. Let's take a look at that.
So here with Kirk Cameron, obviously we're at the March for Life. Tell me a little bit about why this issue matters to you.
Well, the issue of protecting life, equality begins in the womb, that's the theme that we're hearing all throughout the march today, is important to me personally because first of all, I'm part of the family of faith. And the Bible says that those who hate God love death. We here love God and we love life. For me, my wife was an adopted child. Yeah. So she could have very easily been aborted, but her mother chose life for her. She was one doctor appointment away from not existing. Our 4 oldest children are also adopted. And if my wife hadn't been born, either would our 2 natural born children. So our 6 kids and my wife are all here because of the work of the pro-life movement over the years, resulting in the miracles of my wife and all 6 of my kids. Yeah. So it's a real honor for me to be here. And this may be the last year of the March for Life. With Roe v. Wade potentially being overturned, this may not be necessary, but we've got marching orders from the executive in heaven, and those mandates tell us to continue loving God, loving one another, and standing for life.
Okay, and that's what I was going to ask you. We have the potential for a Supreme Court case that could reverse a lot of this. It could reverse Roe v. Wade. How do we keep a pro-life ethic, though, after we're not just against abortion, we're going to be for life, and if you're for adoption, how do we have that, carry that pro-life ethic into all of life?
Well, I think it's similar to our faith. We can go to church on a Sunday, yeah. But the deal is really not about church attendance or memorizing your Bible. The deal is about walking humbly with God in the trenches and in the ditches, loving your wife, loving your husband, raising your kids, and applying God's word to all aspects of life, including this issue of protecting the lives of the unborn and protecting those moms and training our young sons and daughters to have the kind of morality where they honor and respect one another, and they're not producing children outside of wedlock. So all of these things are important. I think we can do that in 1,000 different ways. One of the ways I've been positioned to make a difference in Hollywood is by making movies that tell stories. Later this year, we're going to be releasing a new film together with the Kendrick brothers. Those are the guys that made Fireproof, War Room, Courageous. They've teamed up together with me, and we've got a movie coming out about the value of life and the beauty of adoption. It's based on a true story. We couldn't have scripted something better than this. We're putting the finishing touches on it. It's called Life Mark, and it'll be coming out later this year.
So I want to ask you, being in Hollywood, obviously you're a Christian and you're outspoken about that. How have you found that balance in Hollywood, and why have you chosen to be so outspoken about this?
Well, I never set out to strike a balance. I was already in Hollywood on Growing Pains, and God reached down and changed my heart, changed my mind, and then I understood that the most important audience I could ever live for was not the one I stood in front of on Growing Pains, but the audience of heaven. And ultimately, the director, the producer, and the author of the script of my life is God. And so I'm just trying to be faithful wherever He puts me. And He's kept me here in Hollywood, telling stories, making projects, and going around the country and speaking on issues that matter.
Well, Kirk Cameron, thank you so much for joining us on the CBN News live stream for the March for Life. We appreciate it.
Great to be here with you. Thanks for being here too.
Thanks.
All right. What's your name? Where are you from?
Jake Wilson from Fort Worth, Texas.
And why did you come out here to D.C. today?
There's a lot of reasons I could give, but I would say it's all about, there's millions of reasons really when you think about all the unborn babies that are going to exist if Roe is overturned. They're going to be alive because Roe is overturned. And this is my first time to actually come to March for Life. I haven't been to D.C. since 1997 when I was 10 years old. But I just decided this year with everything going on with the Supreme Court, and they allowed my state of Texas to ban abortion, that I had to show up. I had to, march for life this year.
Is it everything you hoped it would be?
Yeah, it's impressive. I'm really glad to be here. And one thing to learn too is 40 Days for Life. It started while I was a student at Texas A&M University. At the time, Abby Johnson, who's a pro-life activist now, I was praying outside her clinic while she ran Planned Parenthood. And one thing that's interesting about it is 40 Days for Life and what's become a worldwide movement of praying outside abortion clinics. It started in Texas, and where it started is the first state to allow abortion to be illegal after 6 weeks. I think that's the testament to the power of prayer, that Texas is where 40 Days for Life started. Texas is where the first law goes into effect.
And you were outside her clinic praying for her, and look at her now.
Yeah, exactly. It's very interesting just to go from that to this. And also, when I was an unborn baby, the doctor asked my mom to abort me. My mom's here. Asked my mom to abort me because a sonogram showed that there was a hump on the back of my neck and that I'd be really disabled, but it turned out the sonogram was wrong. And the whole church was praying, but they decided that, either God healed me or the sonogram was wrong. So it's really something just be out here, and how you see it from that to College Station to this is just really incredible movement to be part of.
And this is your mom right here, right?
Yes.
When I was 4 months pregnant with him, the doctors told me to abort him, and I'm very grateful I didn't listen to them, not for an instant.
Well, thank you both so much. What an incredible story. Thanks for sharing it with us today. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
God bless you.
What an amazing story.
Giggle Maggies.
What an amazing story about the power of prayer. Wow.
So we have another person we want to talk to, right back to back. He definitely, his name's LK, the Patriot Man. So tell me a little bit about why you're passionate about the pro-life movement.
Well,
I'm 71 years old. I have 3 sons. My youngest son was born 3 months early. He only weighed 2 pounds and a half ounce. I prayed to God that if he would live, I would fight for every unborn baby for the rest of my life. I don't have superpowers like Superman. I couldn't jump a building if I had to. But I believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Without life, the other two are not possible. We need truth, justice.
There's a lot going on here, but
I just believe that we were given the Constitution for rights for all people. And these babies are people. They're persons. They're not things. They need to be protected. And it's time for all of us to stand up as Americans with our vote and decide if someone is for murdering babies, do not put them in office. Remove them from office. That's a deal breaker with me. Okay? Patriot Man is here for God, family, country, truth, justice, and America.
Well, thank you so much for taking a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Again, that's the kind of energy that we've seen. He told me, he said, like, I want to be a spectacle, but he said he wants to be a spectacle for something that matters. And we're seeing so many people are doing that. They're eccentric and they're showing their personality and they're not afraid to speak out for something that matters to them. And the pro-life movement is something that matters to a lot of people, and they're speaking out about it today, and we're seeing that right now.
Sure, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, every time somebody is asked why they're passionate about the pro-life movement, you sense the real love and compassion that people have, and I think that gets lost in this discussion very often with the political debate that happens, but that this is a movement, the people here who are very motivated by love for others, which is a commandment of our faith.
Dedicated to ending abortion. Who can say that? Almost nobody. We've listened to the lies of the pro-life establishment who tells us, give us money and we'll fix things for you. Throw money at us and we'll talk all the women out of abortion. It's a lie. Those ultrasounds aren't nearly as effective as people think they are. The CPCs aren't nearly as effective as people think they are. They're mostly diaper distribution centers. When are we going to be willing?
All right, you are watching CBN News special coverage of the 2020 March for Life, and you are walking along the march route with us. Billy Hallowell and Trey Goins-Phillips are down there walking the march with our team and interacting with some of the people as they go along, as you just saw. All kinds of different personalities there, including that last man who I believe dubbed himself the Patriot Man, or referred to himself in third person. So a lot of energy, a lot of fun happening down there. And so want to show you guys a conversation that Billy and Trey had with Abby Johnson, a noted leader in the pro-life movement, formerly used to work for Planned Parenthood. You may be familiar about her story. And so before we get back down to Billy and Trey interacting with everyone there on the ground, I want to show you a little bit of this conversation with Abby Johnson. Check it out.
I'm Billy Hallowell here at the March for Life with Abby Johnson. How you doing, Abby?
I'm doing good.
All right, so there's a lot of energy this year. There's a lot going on in the pro-life movement. What are you most excited about for the march?
You know what? I mean, this could be possibly the last march that we have while Roe is still legal. So while Roe is still on the books. So, I mean, this is really exciting. There's a lot of energy. No matter what, in June, the court is going to come back and something about abortion is going to be different, right? So the states are going to be able to decide something differently on abortion. So People are excited. Doesn't mean there's not going to be work to do. We're still going to have a lot of work to do. But it's just, you can feel it in the air. People are excited. There's buses coming from all over the country. My daughter's whole high school is here.
Her whole high school has come.
Her whole high school has come.
That's amazing.
So, people are just really excited. You can just feel the energy here.
So talk about that a little bit. Let's say Roe is partially dismantled or totally dismantled. What is the work that still needs to happen?
Yeah, so if Roe is completely overturned, then we're looking at about half the states in the United States where abortion will be completely illegal. But that doesn't mean that it's going to be illegal forever. It means that then Planned Parenthood, I mean, Warren Buffett, George Soros, huge funders of abortion, that means that they are going to start funding, governor campaigns, and
it's about the states at that point.
It's about the states. So they're going to start funding. They're going to start pushing candidates in those states to try to legalize abortion once again, right? But then we're going to have other states like California, New Jersey just codified Roe essentially in their state. So we're going to have other states. Governor Newsom has said that California is going to be a sanctuary state for abortion. So now we're going to go back to the states, and we're going to have to start fighting in those individual states, and we're going to have battleground states. I mean, we're essentially going to have to start going back to the states and have individual fights in each state to make abortion illegal. But even more than that, it's really about changing our culture. And so it's about making abortion unthinkable.
Changing hearts.
Changing hearts, having those individual conversations with people so that they look at abortion just like we do at slavery, right? We look at slavery and we go, how could anybody do that?
How did that happen?
How did that happen? That's what we need to start thinking when we think about abortion.
All right, my last question for you, because I know you got a lot going on today. You do a lot when it comes to changing the heart, but you also help women who are pregnant. A lot of times in the pro-life movement, there are some critiques. Oh, your people are pro-birth. You go out of your way to help women, rallying people around the country to donate, to give money. Can you talk a little bit about those efforts?
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, I started an organization called Loveline, and people can go check it out at loveline.com. And essentially what we do is we provide comprehensive case management to women, to families, to men, anybody who is in a crisis and needs help. So single moms, single dads, victims of domestic violence, victims of sex trafficking. If you are in a crisis, we are here to help you. And it's been just taking off, like wildfire. We have provided case management to over 1,500 individuals so far. And when I mean case management, I mean case management. I mean, we are accompanying them, we talk about oftentimes the gospel of accompaniment, really walking alongside of an individual who's hurting, who's broken, who's in need of crisis intervention, and that's really what we're doing. And it's really beautiful to see life restored and hope restored, and God's mercy just poured out on these men and women who are in need of it. And so that's what we're doing. If you ever encounter someone who you feel like, man, they could really use some support right now, just encourage them to go to loveline.com. We have a 24-hour intake line. We would love to help them.
Abby, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
We had a group from Mexico come by already.
So I'm talking here right now with Jack. He's with the Crusaders for Life. They have an enormous sign. I don't know if you were able to get that earlier. It says, "Love gives life." So Jack, I want to ask you, why are you passionate about this issue, and why have you chosen to be here this year?
I think the reason just to be here this year is, especially in the past 2 years, we've seen a lot of changes. A lot of things have changed since the last time I would have stood here in 2019. But to show everybody here who's showing up maybe for their first march, who feels like they're alone and we're standing here in a fight that we're not winning, that there is still hope and that eventually this will be overturned.
And look, this is actually my first march. I've never been to the March for Life before this year, and now covering it here with CBN News and Faithwire. And there's a whole lot of momentum and energy, and it's also a fun movement. I think that's the political talking point you see in the mainstream media, is that it's all serious. But there's a lot of fun people. We talked to somebody earlier he said he's Patriot Man. So what's been the coolest part of being here for this year's March for Life?
I think just seeing the number of people and the diversity of the different groups, as we've seen over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of other marches that have gone on, both in DC and other places, that haven't necessarily touched the fun, lighthearted aspect of this, showing that there's joy to everything that we're doing. And I really feel that this shows that right now.
And you mentioned a little bit about why you're here this year, but why have you chosen to be pro-life? Why is this something that you're passionate about?
Because it's something that some people just take for granted that they were born into a household that they can have a right to life, to speak up for it. And I want to show the people who were not in that situation, and then the people who are on the fence, that life is joyful, it's worth living, and that there's value to what you're doing and to being here and showing that in showing up here and everywhere else around the country that's going on today.
And you said to me before we started talking, you're with a group of 160 plus people. All of y'all are from Chicago. How bad was the trip here? How good was the trip here? Because it must have been cold coming here from Chicago.
It certainly was, but as opposed to my first time out here getting snowed in on the trip back, let's hope that doesn't happen tomorrow. So it was a great trip out, and looking forward to heading back, but it's been great to be out here as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack. I appreciate it. Look, there are so many people here who have similar stories coming from all different parts of the country, even different parts of the world, here to participate in this march. And it really is such a fun movement. Like, that's the energy here that I want to highlight. It's not heavy. There's a lot of joy and excitement and fun from different people who are just here to tell their story and to share why they care about the life issue.
And right now we are walking past the National Gallery of Art. The crowd is making their way down Constitution toward the Supreme Court. We can see way down in the distance the High Court. And we're seeing signs, lots of different schools here. Going back to our conversation about young people, Princeton pro-life. Looks like there's some students from Princeton University and lots of other colleges. Benedictine College, high schools. It's pretty incredible to see.
Oh my goodness, you guys.
The cheering seems to be getting louder as we move closer to the Supreme Court. Lots of invigorated young people.
Billy and Trey down there, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but how close are you? How far along on the route are you so far? Can you even tell exactly how much farther you have left to go?
We can see the court, but it's a ways off still. So there's a ways to go here. I would say probably another 30 minutes or so.
Mm. And how would you
say? And it's, the crowd is moving at a steady pace every once in a while.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what part of the march are you in? Are you like towards the back of it? Are you guys right at the front? Because we'll see the time lapse later on, I'm sure, but of how long and how just, the complete depth of this march and the size of this crowd. But can you tell whereabouts in the march you are, like towards the front, towards the end?
Yeah, I think we're about in the middle of the march right now. And so we have a huge crowd behind us. As you can see right now, the camera was just looking behind us, and now the camera's panning. You could see way, way back there, there's a stream of people coming. And if you look ahead of us, you can also see the same. So we're sort of right in the middle of this and, watching the excitement of the people reaching toward the court, and then those who... And by the way, actually, if the camera is going to pan over to the right, and you will see the U.S. Capitol. So we are inching toward the U.S. Capitol as well.
All right.
Yeah, we're at the intersection right now of Pennsylvania and Constitution Avenue. Yeah, like Billy said, we're looking right at the Capitol. So it's like an enormous march. Like I said, the media seems to overlook, but there certainly is no doubt that politicians are seeing what's happening today along Constitution Avenue as people head to the Supreme Court. The message they're sending is undoubtedly clear.
Well, we'll see if anyone pays attention to it in Congress, in Washington, D.C., but clearly impossible to miss this, certainly if you're trying to drive anywhere. Good luck with that in that area today. But all right, I wanted to go ahead and toss it down now to an interview. The performer, the musical performer today was Joseph St. Cyr, and what a phenomenal performance he put on for the crowd as they were waiting for the rally to begin earlier this morning, taking part in the march, and he stopped by with our team and had a few words. Let's check that out.
I'm Billy Hollowell, and I am here with Jordan St. Cyr. How you doing?
Doing so good, man. I'm warm.
You're warm.
I'm
It
warm now.
is nice and warm here because you were just out there on the stage and you were performing in front of the March for Life crowd.
That's right.
How cold was it?
It was pretty cold. You know, I was warm by the time I got on, but then you realize, oh, right, these strings that I'm playing on the guitar are metal.
And they're freezing.
So we got through it. We did all right.
So let me ask you, why was it important for you to be here? Why did you want to be here?
Yeah, you know what? Honestly, I think it's time for men in general to just rise up to, you know, I think so often we see the voice coming from the mother, and I think that's amazing. But I think the Father's heart of God is really just speaking to me as a father, and it's important for us to lead our homes and to really bring our 100% to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, loving others, doing it in a loving way. And
that's right.
I think it's so important what you just said, though, because a lot of times in this conversation, it's like, oh, men shouldn't talk about it. They shouldn't be involved in it. And
we're passive,
right.
You know? And I think this is the work of the church, to be a voice for the voiceless, to bear the weight of those that can't bear it on their own. And I just think it's important for everyone to be a part of this. And it's time for men to just, you know, lead the charge.
Well, and you did it today. You brought down the house. You did a great job in the cold.
Thank you.
Now, let's talk a little bit about your career.
Yeah.
Exciting. I mean, you've got a lot going on. Ann Wilson tour.
That's right.
I Still Believe with Jeremy Camp.
Yeah.
You've had a bunch of great songs. I mean, talk about what this has been like for you.
You know, it's been a long journey for me. I've been playing music for the better part of my life. It really started, I think, for me, God began to shift, you know, make a shift in my heart. Really when my youngest daughter was born. She was born with a rare brain condition. And the work that God did in my heart through this little girl, this sense of compassion, this idea of how we best serve our neighbor, right? Love our neighbor as ourselves. And God gave me this gift of music to serve as a bridge to do that. And so that paradigm shift was paramount in my life. And I think these songs are working because they're impacting lives. And so now I'll always say, if these songs are of service to people, I'll keep doing it. And if they're not, I'll do something else.
See, that's a powerful message because a lot of people go into music, and you know this, because of the fame or because they're working toward the money or the notoriety. Right. You know, for Christian artists, the focus is the gospel. It's truth, right? And that's what you're speaking to right here. And that feels like almost a rarity, and it also feels like a hard thing to hold on to, though, I would imagine.
Yeah, you know what? It's so important that we don't identify with what we do. We identify with who God says we are.
That's
because
huge.
Then we can hold our career with an open hand, and when God decides it's time for us to move on, we can say, okay, live that surrendered life. And I also, if you're a parent out there and you've got kids, let them be the grounding rods in your life, because they demand your time, they demand those moments, and that's what really matters. So,
and they teach you a lot about yourself. They teach you a lot about patience.
Everything.
Everything.
Yes.
100%.
That's right. So allow them to be, I believe, the voice of the Holy Spirit in your home, to say, Dad, I need you, so that when you do that job, when you step out on that stage, you're just going out hopefully as a present father or a present husband and a good father,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So this is almost a silly question in the
Yeah.
modern era because anybody can Google, but where is a place you want people to go if they want to hear your music, they want to know more about you? Where
Yes,
can they do that?
please follow me on Instagram at Jordan St. Cyr, JordanStCyr.
CYR, that's the key.
CYR. There's no, vowels in that last name. Check me out on Spotify and Apple Music. That really serves, puts food on the table for my kids. So
And let you spread the gospel. I love it.
Amen.
Thanks so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Love it.
Everyone else, make sure you continue to watch the feed on our YouTube page and Facebook. All right. So we found a group here from Canada. What brings you out here today?
I am pro-life, and I'm really passionate. I am so passionate about protecting the unborn because they have no voice for themselves. So we're here to be the voice for them today.
What have you been most inspired by today?
Just the amount of people and the amount of young people that are here to further the cause, the pro-life cause. It's really inspiring because in Canada we don't have too much of this, but here it's really inspiring, especially to see so many young people out today.
What message will you carry back with you when you leave here today?
So we're definitely energized to continue fighting for pro-life vision in our country. It's a long way away, but we're so inspired by the fervor here, the young people especially, and we're ready to go out there.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
That was amazing. It's amazing to see people coming from Canada and finding inspiration from all of these amazing protesters and demonstrators who've shown up today to make their voices heard.
Yeah, and it's not just Canada, it's people from a lot of other countries. I think I heard somebody earlier today say that they had met someone who came from Brazil to be part of the March for Life. So this is an issue that people around the world care about because as a leader, as a world leader, the United States sets the precedent for a lot of this stuff. And that's why people, particularly the pro-life issue, and that's why I think so many people around the world care about this issue, and their eyes are on the Supreme Court, like we've said several times, as they're deliberating over the Dobbs Supreme Court case, which so many pro-life leaders are tuned into and paying attention to, and in fact are optimistic about. Like I said, we talked to Julia Letlow. We heard that interview earlier. She's optimistic about the possibility of Roe v. Wade being overturned, and then this will become a state's issue, and is then something that pro-lifers will have to take the issue to states. It won't be as much of a federal issue, but it will be a battleground issue in states around the country.
And it's a reminder, it's so easy to think that you're not making an impact. What does one person do? Well, every person who's here, they've coalesced to inspire people from another country and other countries, as you said, Trey, to come here so that they can bring that message back home as well. That's a very powerful reminder.
Hey guys, it'd also be interesting. There's so many young people out in this march, and it would be interesting if you interact with any more of them. I'd like to know what is it like from wherever they're from, in school or college or high school or whatever the case may be. What's it like being pro-life at that point? Is it the unpopular sort of stand to take for them? I'd be interested to hear that answer, something along those lines, if you guys speak to anybody else. It just seems like there's a very, very young contingent out there today.
Yeah, and that's something that I would imagine by the volume and numbers of young people that we're seeing this becoming more of a normative position among young people. We see that in statistics and polls on this as well, and so that's something we will definitely be asking. But by the sound and the judge of it and the look of it, they're very proud to be here, and they don't seem to be worried about that at all. it's interesting. I have been to this event. This is my third time, and I will say that I think one of the big differences this year, I mean, there's always enthusiasm, there's always excitement, but this year it's really palpable. There's a real belief that we could be either at the end of Roe or seeing a very different, and you heard Abby Johnson say this in her interview, a very different scenario when it comes to abortion laws in America, no matter what happens in June. So that sense of the excitement is definitely much more intense than I remember from any previous March for Life.
Yeah, Billy, I think that's true. There are so many people. Representative Chris Smith from New Jersey is another interview that we have. We'll have that coming up on the live stream. He talked about how his faith has informed so much of what he believes, and he said that, if we get this, or if the Supreme Court makes the decision to overturn the precedent set with Roe v. Wade in June of this year, he said then it does become a state's issue, and he said we can't let off the gas. He said that's something that you have to keep pushing, and he said we have to make the argument, and he said we have to make the argument by appealing to people's faith. He said appealing to their morality. So I think it's something that not only are we seeing a lot of momentum just today, Billy, but I think we're seeing momentum that's going to carry out around the rest of the country throughout the rest of the year, particularly in June when the Supreme Court is expected to make their ruling.
Yeah, and that's the consistent theme here, by the way, that it's about the heart. We talked about this a little earlier. Changing hearts, changing laws and changing hearts. Those are two different things that seem to be, for many of the activists and individuals here, working in unison, and that the real value, and we know this as believers and as Christians, is changing people's hearts toward the Lord. And once you do that, everything else changes as well. So you can feel that very deeply, that people sense that is on the horizon here on this issue.
All right, as these guys make their way up the March for Life here to the Supreme Court, want to bring you into a conversation. We were able to catch up with one of the speakers here at the 2022 March for Life, Kristen Waggoner, who is from the Alliance of Defending Freedom. And so we have that conversation here while Billy and Trey are making their way down the march. Let's take a look at that.
So Kristen Waggoner with the Alliance of Defending Freedom, you're the general counsel there. Why are you here? Why is it so important to be at the March for Life today in D.C.?
I love the march. I mean, it's a privilege to be the first time I'll speak at it today, but in terms of our team, we come every year. It's the largest human rights demonstration in the world. Why wouldn't you want to be a part of it? It's super exciting, vibrant, and joyful.
Look, and this is happening in the midst of the Dobbs case in the Supreme Court. This is a big year for abortion, for the pro-life movement. What kind of momentum do you see coming out of this and going into the ruling potentially this summer on Dobbs?
Tremendous momentum. I mean, that's what makes this year so unique, is that we really are positioned to fully and finally have Roe reversed. The court will make that decision anytime now between June. And so many Americans have marched, they've prayed, and they've worked for this day to come. So we hope the U.S. Supreme Court has the courage to do what's right.
Look, and as somebody who's in the legal sphere, the legal realm, there is a lot of confusion about what this would mean, because essentially this would send this to a state's issue. What does that mean for abortion and for the pro-life movement?
Well, Roe versus Wade was where the U.S. Supreme Court created a constitutional right to abortion. That right isn't anywhere in the Constitution, it's not in American law or in our nation's history. So if the Supreme Court reverses that ruling as it ought, then citizens will then have a voice, and you'll see a very robust discussion occur in every state about what limits should be on abortion, and that it even could be full limits on abortion in many of our states. So it's more important now than ever that people get involved, they understand these issues, and they work with their state legislators to do what's right and protect life.
And so often this conversation is framed about reproductive rights and women's health care. How can pro-lifers combat that argument and win the debate?
Well, first of all, every abortion is dangerous. You can look at the science, you can look at the studies, and you know that. Even the Supreme Court has said that there are implications for women that are physical, mental, emotional. There are also spiritual implications. So it's always dangerous. In addition to that, though, we have a role in empowering women to choose life and to protect their unborn. A woman shouldn't be pitted against her unborn. And there are lots of ways to do that, both in our state governments, our local governments, but also as private individuals. I mean, just look at what pregnancy resource centers have done over the last 50 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Here, my last question for you. For people who are here in D.C. for the march, when they go home after all of this is done, how do they continue to make actionable steps for the pro-life movement?
I think the very first thing is to talk about it, to understand it, because people think that they're alone in their opinions when they question this, and we're forced with this cancel culture that we think we should be silent. We need to talk about it, talk about the implications of abortion, talk that women they can be successful and still be mothers. We shouldn't be forced to that choice.
Yeah.
And then they need to engage in city councils and state governments and to change the law when it comes down to that. And I sure hope it will this year.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kristen Wagner from Alliance Defending Freedom. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We are very close to the U.S. Capitol right now. It's over to our right, and we're actually noticing, it's really interesting, all of the different groups that are here, a lot of them are wearing the same winter hats. They've got the same hats on. You've got a group of people with purple hats in front of us, and you could tell that these groups, and it's actually very smart, a way to make sure you can keep track of everybody in your group, that they're all wearing these matching hats.
Yeah, and it's cool to see so many from different schools. They're from different churches. They're from different parishes. A lot of them are Catholic, but there are plenty of Protestant groups here as well. So it's interesting to see, like you said, Billy, all the different hats, like a sea of purple, and then there's a sea of red hats in another area. And I'm looking at navy blue hats right now. I don't know exactly what y'all are looking at on the feed right this second, but there are so many different groups of people here, and all of them are so excited to be here. Some people we've talked to who are not interested in getting on our live stream, others who have loved to get on the live stream, but all of them have been so excited to be here and are really pumped to be participating in this year's March for Life, because like Billy has said, like several of the people we've interviewed have said, there's a different momentum and there's a palpable excitement. That's what Jeannie Mancini told us leading up to the March for Life. She said there's a palpable excitement about this year because of the Supreme Court.
You know, and right now the camera is pointed over to the right. If the camera pans up a little bit, you will see the U.S. Capitol. What a sign and a symbol. I can't think of a better sign or symbol to show than tens and tens of thousands of people flooding the streets, lovingly holding signs, making their voices heard in the greatest country on earth. It's amazing to see and to watch, and I would imagine anybody in that building right now watching this go by, any resident here seeing their road shut down, there's no way to ignore what's being seen in the streets right now.
Yeah, for sure. There is a strong message being sent. And like I said, I just want to read again some of the signs that we're seeing. It says, in memory of aborted children is one of the signs we're seeing. Another, it says, life is sacred. The future is anti-abortion. Again, love them both is one that we're seeing a lot of. Remember the unborn. And a lot of them have scripture references attached to them too. Jeremiah 1:5 is a verse that we're seeing a lot of right now, which obviously talks about how God knitted us together in our mother's womb, and that he preordained us for a purpose. So there's a lot of excitement, and so many of the people here are doing this and are taking this stand for life because they're inspired, encouraged, and they feel called to because of their faith in Jesus, their Christian faith. And that's been a big thing here today, a common thread among the vast majority of the people who we've spoken to so far.
We've got a couple of groups here, the Catholic Campus Ministry of George Mason University, and we've got Soldiers of Christ. It's a Catholic homeschool youth group from Western New York, so we've got some New Yorkers here as well. And again, a lot more cheering going on, and it's just amazing seeing these groups come together in such a unified way. And by the way, there's a lot of diversity within the pro-life movement, which people might not realize. There are actually secular atheist groups, believe it or not. There are all sorts of different groups here who have come together, and different denominations, which I think is the really unique part of this journey of being here at the March for Life.
All right, as they sort of get their shot fixed there, you can see the March for Life. This is special CBN coverage of the March for Life 2022. Didn't happen really last year the way it normally does. It was mostly virtual for reasons obviously related to the pandemic. And so you've got now 2 years since people have really been able to come out in full force and make their voices be heard in D.C. On the life issue. And so you are seeing them out in full force today, as Billy and Trey have showed just in their portion of the march. Now, you'll see the time lapse later on. This thing just is going to keep going and going. Absolutely huge crowd. And just wanted to make you aware of a couple ways you can also make your voice be heard. Go to cbnfaithandaction.com. We've also been using a QR code here during the broadcast, during the live stream. But you can go to cbnfaithandaction.com and you'll see there important pro-life petitions. You can sign one or two or all three of them. And there's a few different issues surrounding them in specific to the pro-life issue: stopping taxpayer-funded abortion, saving babies who feel pain, and protecting babies born alive. So these are obvious ways that you can help support through CBN the pro-life movement and support the most vulnerable among us, as you're seeing many people do today. And so you could do that. You could also, on the QR codes here, you could sign up for Quick Start, which is CBN's morning email newsletter. You can get your news of the day, without all the filters, without all of the mainstream media and the social media gatekeepers telling you, what news you're going to see and not see. If you want to get your news from a Christian perspective, get it direct from the source. Sign up for the Quick Start email newsletter. You can also download the CBN News app, the CBN Family app. You can get both of those, and you can beat the gatekeepers. Don't let them decide what it is you're going to see. It's an easy way to do it. Download the apps, get it direct. And also don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel, the CBN News YouTube channel, for more great content like this. And we are on the ground there. Billy, Hallowell, Trey, Goins-Phillips have been walking the March for Life. You've seen them interacting with folks, and we've also caught up with several of the influencers and pro-life leaders and politicians that have been a part of this event. And one of those that the team caught up with just a short while ago was Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. So let's take a look at that conversation.
I'm Billy Hallowell, and I'm here with Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. How are you?
I'm doing good, trying to stay warm. How are you doing?
It's very, very frigid. I am doing well.
Yes.
So what brings you out to the March for Life today?
Well, I'm very pro-life, unapologetically. I believe that life is a wonderful thing. I'm a mom of 3 kids and consider being a mother the greatest blessing of my life. And I'm here to support all the people that traveled from their homes far away, came to our nation's capital to exclaim how important ending abortion is.
When you look at what's going on right now culturally, and also the Supreme Court, they're going to have a big ruling on this. What are you thinking is going to happen down the pipeline here?
I have a really good feeling. I think we could see Roe versus Wade overturned, and I think that'd be the greatest thing that could happen. We've basically had a darkness on us since abortion became legal in America, and we're without excuse. If anyone has ever seen an ultrasound or a sonogram, you can see that human life even so early on. And I'm a big believer that life starts at conception, and I think there's a change happening in our country, and I think it's a good chance that that Supreme Court case overturns Roe versus Wade.
I remember seeing when my wife was pregnant, at 3 months, seeing the baby, and I remember thinking I didn't realize how developed at 3 months a baby is, and it really opens your eyes. It feels like the technology has changed. It's opened our eyes. And so really we want to see abortion be unthinkable, right? That's the goal.
Absolutely. Well, even before 1973, when Roe versus Wade happened and abortion became legal, in 1965 there was a photographer that actually, through a special procedure, was photographed a baby in the womb at 18 weeks. And it was on the cover of a magazine. It was famous, and that was 1965. And you could see the baby perfectly developed with fingers and toes and little ears and nose, and that they had proof. They had proof it wasn't just a clump of cells. So it should have never happened in the first place.
Last question for you. Out of all the issues of importance, where does abortion fall for you?
I believe it's number one. I truly do. I'm a Christian, and I believe that as long as we're funding abortion, as long as we're allowing abortion to be legal, murdering a life in the most sacred place where life is supposed to be most protected, which is the womb, I believe that God's judgment is on our country, and that's why I believe that it's so important to overturn it and tell women that no matter how difficult your life is and the problems you're facing, killing your baby in the womb will never solve your problems. As a matter of fact, it'll lead to worse problems. And being a mother, if anything, will help you achieve your dreams and live the best life that God designed for you.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank
Everyone
you.
else, make sure you continue watching the live stream.
All right, thanks for that conversation, Billy. And just getting word here that organizers are estimating that about 50,000 people there at least today. So incredible turnout. We'll throw it down now to Billy Hallowell.
Yes, it is a massive, massive crowd. Now, I have someone here. What's your name? Where are you from?
My name is Patrick Wright, and I'm with George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia.
And what is it that brings you out here today?
So for me, it's because I love life, and I'm out here to celebrate life and show that we respect life from conception until natural death. And there are thousands of young people out here saying that they want to advocate for life, and they see that as the most important right for all.
What sign do you think this sends? We're standing outside of the U.S. Capitol. What do you think this says to our leaders?
It's definitely very inspiring, and I think it shows that so many Americans, they value life, and they think that this should be protected in law and in our society so that we can truly be a culture that focuses on life and loves that.
Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
So as you can see, very, very passionate. Again, another young person, and I love what he had to say about the inspiration that it could send to our leaders as well. I think a lot of times we focus on the negative in this discussion, but the idea is, again, changing hearts and bringing that inspiration to everyone, particularly U.S. leaders.
Yeah, I think the excitement among, again, I know that we kind of sound like a broken record at this point, but the excitement among really young Americans, teenagers, is really exciting. College students like the one, Billy, you just spoke to. I think that's really exciting, and it certainly sends a message about what the future might mean for abortion. I think more and more people are becoming aware of the science, right? Because we've talked so much about the importance of science in the age of COVID, and I think so many people are getting more tuned in to what actually happens, that you can't make a scientific argument in their minds to keep abortion legal. I think more and more kids, particularly kids who are prone to activism, and that's the generations that exist now, like the Gen Z generation, they're an activist generation. So I think they're getting excited about the possibility of saying, hey, the science doesn't line up here, and we're seeing them raise their voices about this issue today and in other events around the country at different points around the year, and I think they're only going to ramp up in the coming months as we head into the summer.
You know, the one other encouraging thing about the March for Life and the pro-life movement in general is that in an era in which we've really struggled with truth, right? Truth has been sort of a bendable, pliable thing, and it really shouldn't be. And yet here we have an issue where the truth has sort of been concealed, and now you have a lot of people coming forward and they're seeing the reality, the truth, like what you were saying, Trey, that science factor. Once you start to look at it, it becomes undeniable that you're looking at an unborn baby. And so you're seeing the fruits of that play out. And so it's one bright light in the midst of a very chaotic political culture.
All right, Billy Hallowell and Trey Goins-Phillips are making their way down the march here, the March for Life 2022. This is CBN News special coverage of that event, letting you go along for that march, and you just are getting from this feed an incredible just incredible perspective of the size and scope of this march, and which is remarkable, as Billy and Trey have mentioned, that often is overlooked. So, guys, can you kind of let us know? I know I saw you go past the Capitol there. Are we closing in on the Supreme Court? Whereabouts are you guys now? There we go. Right outside the Capitol.
Yeah, we're looking for a street marker here. We're getting closer. Yeah, we're right outside the Capitol. We're actually passing the side of the Capitol right now. So in the next 2 minutes, we'll be actually moving past the Capitol. So we are inching closer. As I said, we often have to pause and stop because of the size, of the crowd here.
All right. While they're making their way past the Capitol and navigating this massive crowd, which organizers have now said is estimated around 50,000 at least. Obviously, tough to estimate these crowds. We'll know better when we see the overheads as well. But we caught up a little bit earlier with the Students for Life and Kirsten Hawkins. And so we want to play a little bit of that interview for you while they continue to march right here on CBN. Check it out.
So thank you so much. You're with Students for Life.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about the organization, but also why you're here.
Yeah, well, Students for Life is the nation's largest pro-life grassroots organization. Yeah. We are honored to serve more than 1,300 chapters in college and high school campuses in all 50 states. We've trained more than 130,000 young people since we launched 15 years ago, really with the mission of taking this generation, each of us who have survived the abortion gauntlet, who could have been aborted for the price of a PlayStation, taking this pro-life gen and becoming and leading the fight for the post-Roe America.
Yeah. And so many people in the pro-life movement, every year it seems to get younger and younger. There's so much momentum.
I get older and older, right? Yes.
But tell us about that, about how the momentum seems to be shifting towards younger and younger generations.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, right? Because when you poll and you ask young people about their views on religion, about other political issues, they tend to be very liberal. Yeah. But this generation, Gen Z and Gen Y, who now are the largest portion of our electorate, they're a third of our electorate, they are actually against abortion. Why? Because they've seen their brothers and sisters on ultrasound. So those antiquated 1973 talking points of it's a blob of tissue don't hold weight. They've met someone and have known someone in their life personally who's been wounded by the lies of the abortion industry. And they also see violence for what it is. They know abortion is violence, that an abortionist is only successful in his job if a beating heart stops beating. And they very much see themselves as warriors for the voiceless, for the vulnerable. And it makes sense that, of course, this is a whole segment of our population who we've disordered our rights, and we said someone's pursuit of happiness trumps another person's right to live. And every time in history we have done that disordering of our rights that are so beautifully laid out in our Declaration, we know subjugation, slavery, and death always follows those things.
Yeah. And look, we're at a big year, right? This is it's not only the March for Life, which is a big deal every year, but it's happening while the Supreme Court is considering Dobbs. What does that potentially mean for the future of the pro-life movement?
Sure. Tomorrow is our National Pro-Life Summit. It's the world's largest pro-life training, and it's actually going to be the anniversary of Roe tomorrow. So tomorrow will actually begin the 50th full year of legal abortion. And I've been talking to all of our young people across town who I meet, and I keep asking them, why did you come this year? Despite all the COVID regulations, all of the hoops you had to jump through. And they all said, I want to be here to make sure we don't have to be here next year. Because they realize this is a critical moment. This isn't the end of our battle, though, right? Yeah. So in June, when the Supreme Court hands down their decision in Dobbs, our prayer is that this battle that takes place here in Washington, D.C. becomes a 50-state battle.
Yeah. And my last question for you, and you've already kind of answered it, but why is it so important to continue to reach out to younger generations, to be at college campuses, to talk about this issue with our younger citizens?
Because this is a generation that's being targeted.
Yeah.
Your young people, your children, your grandchildren, if you don't talk to them about sex, if you don't talk to them about abortion, Planned Parenthood's going to do it. Their goal is to get into elementary school, middle school, high school, and college. Their plan is to get into your child's phone, to build a relationship. They have create a customer business cycle. This is exactly the demographic we have to be talking to, because they're the ones who are getting abortions and being marketed to by the abortion industry. I would encourage, and just one plug plug.
Yeah, sure.
All the folks watching to go to studentsforlife.org/fight. We have this new TV commercial on for adults, not students, because so many people say, well, why should we care about these young people? What can I actually do as a parent or grandparent?
Yeah.
So we put together this like free guidebook of what you can do as an adult, as a Christian who says, okay, you've convinced me, I have to do something. This is a pivotal moment. Where do I go next? So go to studentsforlife.org/fight.
Yeah, perfect. That was what I was going to ask you too, is where can they go for more information? Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to talk with us and joining our CBN live stream of the March for Life. We look forward to seeing you out on the march too.
That's right. Thank you so much for having me.
So there is so much excitement here from people all around the world. And I'm talking to Millie now. She lives in Ohio, but she's originally, there's a huge sign that says Argentina. She's from Argentina. Millie, why did you decide to come here to the March for Life?
We came here because it's something very important. In Argentina, the law was passed very recently, so we're just trying to keep on fighting so everything starts to get better.
So why do you think there are so many young people who are getting involved in this, people your age who are really passionate about this? Why are so many people excited about the pro-life issue?
I think they're interested because it's something that I don't think people talk that much. So they were interested and they saw what was happening, so they were, oh, we have to fight for this, yeah.
And what was your favorite part about the trip here to Ohio? What have you enjoyed most about being here at the march?
I really like the buildings. Like walking around, it was really pretty. So
This is my first time ever being at a March for Life. Have you been to one before?
I have been a lot, actually, in Argentina. This is my first one in the U.S., but I've been in a bunch.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Millie. I appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with us. Safe travels back to Ohio.
Thank you.
So there are so many young people. Like I've said, there are so many people from all different walks of life. And I think that Billy will probably be talking with somebody shortly. If I could catch up with him, find out where he is. But for now, we can just keep looking at the march as it's going on. And we should be talking with Billy here in a second.
So we've actually got a couple of other guys here. What is it that brings you out here to the March for Life?
Oh, well, it's the fight for life. I mean, God, the Bible says, before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. So it's quite obvious that life begins in the womb. The first person to recognize Jesus was another unborn child in St. John the Baptist. And so we're just out here recognizing that and standing up and showing out with all other faiths here that life begins at conception. And obviously, if you don't respect life, what else are you going to respect? So, yeah.
And how about you? What brings you out here?
It's time. It's time for a change in our culture. It's time for respect for life. St. John Paul always says you got to build a culture. You have to build it on life. You have to build it on the family. And it's time for that to change.
Thanks for coming out today.
All right, thank you. God bless you guys.
Pretty amazing to see people from around the world, people from here, braving the cold and being out here. Trey, that was an amazing interview you did. Really interesting.
Yeah, and something that she didn't mention, or that I didn't mention, that she had told me before we started talking, is that her dad is actually a doctor. She's from Argentina, ended up in the United States, going to school. She's in high school. She's going to school in Ohio. Her dad is now a doctor here. And she said in the interview, I don't know if you were able to hear, there's so much noise, but Argentina in 2020 just legalized abortion. And she said she's participated for years in pro-life, March for Life rallies over in Argentina, and this is her very first one in the United States. And she said that she's had so much fun. It's been so cool to see so many like-minded people literally flooding Washington, D.C. It feels, Billy, like we're in a sea of people. And all of them are speaking up with one voice about the same issue, which is the issue of life.
Yeah, that's the really affirming part of this process, is being able to be with people who understand the issue, who are passionate about the issue. And look, if you can still be cheering when you're about 2 hours into frigid cold, and if you were at the rally even longer, you know you're passionate about the issue. We even see people coming out of some of the buildings here with signs and pom-poms as they wave in support. You can see on the camera now as they wave in support of those who are out here making their voices heard.
But also, it shouldn't be... Oh my gosh, what are the odds of that?
We're leaving behind the Capitol. It's behind us now in the distance, and we are getting very close to the Supreme Court. And the building that you saw was the Senate office buildings, where you saw some presumably staffers, individuals there offering support. Again, that was the Senate office buildings there. And right now the crowd is slowing down a little bit, you'll see, because the street it's a little narrowed and there's lots of people here.
And there's an enormous police presence here, obviously protecting the area, making sure everybody's going in the right direction. And the entire city is literally shut down. So every once in a while, like you mentioned, Billy, we just come to a gridlock. It's like we're bottlenecking in these tiny streets. But there are just so many people here that have literally just closed down Washington, D.C. because they care about this issue. They're here to talk about it, and they're here to talk about it passionately and loudly. And they certainly are making their voices heard today.
And you're hearing cheers. There are more people up in the window in these Senate office buildings. You'll see them up there. Our camera's panning up there. People are waving, giving thumbs up, and supporting from the warm office buildings.
Yeah, and Bill, you guys can't see that, but it says Senator Mike Braun.
That looks like it's actually, Billy, it looks like it's Senator Mike Braun's.
There you go.
Yeah, Senator Mike Braun's office, and there's some dogs up in the windows too, and everybody loves a dog. I don't know if you could see it on the live stream, but I love dogs, so I'm a big animal lover. So anytime there's an animal, we'll cheer, and when it's tied to the pro-life movement, there's all the more reason to cheer, right?
Well, who knew you could bring your dog into the Senate building? I mean, that's interesting.
Well, if you listen to the 4 and 3 podcast on CBN's Faithwire, you will often hear Trey's dog, Piper, chiming in with their thoughts on the issues of the day.
That is true, and we're actually coming up on a sign, "Men regret lost fatherhood." That's a powerful message. Lots of powerful placards here.
Michael, Kuya. You in the street, good job. Please keep moving. We have 10,000 people coming this way. Maybe more. The hats are super helpful.
And I'm hearing that Senator Braun, actually, the staff you saw in that window, that he is a big supporter of life. And so not a surprise to see his staff there waving and supporting the march.
Yeah, and I just actually heard a cop, you might have heard it over on the microphone, a police officer telling people to continue moving. I don't know where in the march we are at this point, Billy, but the police officer said there are at least 10,000 more people who are trying to get through. Obviously, a ton of people are already down toward the end of the march, but that police officer said, keep moving. There are at least 10,000, maybe more people who are still trying to get down this street to the Supreme Court building. So I can't overemphasize that there are so many people here today, and they're all revved up and excited about the pro-life movement.
And we are on First Street now. The audience and the people here are getting very excited as we are getting closer and closer to the steps of the Supreme Court, where the march will conclude, where everyone will coalesce, and there'll be some speaking events there and some other happenings. And again, we're sort of rounding out to the back of the other side of the Capitol now.
And guys, not only you've been interviewing some people there on the ground that have been from all different kinds of places, from around the country, around the globe. We've got people on our live stream that are watching from Israel, from India, from all over the world to support this issue. And as we've mentioned before, this is just something you're not going to see when tens and tens of thousands of people, 50,000 plus, are gathered. When the narrative doesn't always match the common narratives you see in the mainstream media, you're just not going to see it everywhere. So that's why we felt it's important for CBN to be down here and to show you the truth of what's going on. And the truth of the matter is, if you want to look at just a snapshot of the pro-life movement, and the caricature of it often in the media is that it's just a bunch of old guys trying to tell everybody what to do. And if you look at this movement here, it clearly spans a wide range of demographics there, and is clearly very young. Just evidenced by what we're seeing on the ground there today. You cannot get 50,000 plus young people to do anything like this if they don't care about it. If they don't care about it, they are not going to this. They're not braving 20-something degree weather and staying out there all day. I mean, that rally started and the music started, I think, around 11 o'clock. So to get there, you're probably getting your spot around 10 o'clock. You're outside. They've been outside now. I mean, we're going on after 3 o'clock here. That's hours and hours, at least 5 hours so far out in the freezing cold to make their voice heard. So amazing stuff that we're seeing here, and we are happy to bring it to you here on CBN. And Billy and Trey are out there on the march, and they are making their way, as you just heard. An additional 10,000 people are trying to squeeze into near the Supreme Court there where the march ends up. You can just see that it is super packed. And so we're going to see how far we can get up there to the Supreme Court. And it looks like, actually, now that you can see that in my shot, looks like they might be zeroing in on it now.
We are making our way. You can actually see the Supreme Court to the left. The camera's going to pan over there right now. That is the High Court. That is where all eyes are on as the Dobbs case forges forward towards the June decision that everybody here is waiting for, and the excitement is palpable. And right now we're actually so crowded that it's almost impossible to move around. So this is sort of the meeting point here and the conclusionary point of this amazing march. And we're going to get as close as we can get to the Supreme Court. Another interesting thing here, Trey, is a lot of babies and children with their families. It's really a family event for so many people. I've seen young babies all the way up to grandparents with their families.
Yeah, I think that's the really cool thing, is that it's become this family event over the years. It's something that more and more people, it seems, every year start to show up for, and they're bringing their families. And it really is a powerful picture, right? That this is a pro-life event, and it's families who are coming with their children. They're coming with their babies, or married couples, or whoever are coming with their young kids. I think that's so cool. And there are people I saw that were looking for places to feed their babies. So it's like they're not letting those things disrupt them. They're still coming out, even though it's probably inconvenient at times. They're coming out because they care so much about this issue, and they think that it's worth maybe an inconvenience, and certainly it's worth showing their kids the reality of what's happening and why this issue matters so much.
Yeah, and finding appropriate ways for young kids to talk about these issues is essential. I've got young kids, and teaching a respect of life early on. You're seeing a lot of families and individuals do that today, and it's incredibly, incredibly powerful to watch that generational truth be spread within these families. Now, as you'll see over on the left again, we are very close to the Supreme Court. A lot of people taking selfies, taking pictures. and really just relishing in the moment of having been.
Billy, I actually just heard from one woman who told us, and we won't be able to see it on the live stream, but there's an enormous group. We can't get to them because of where they are and how crowded it is here. But it's 6 buses of kids from Benedictine College. So 6 huge charter buses full of kids who came here to be a part of it. Like I talked to earlier, a group from Chicago, Illinois, the big yellow pro-life sign, if y'all remember that. He was here with 168 people, I think, college students also. Here from Chicago. Again, we talked to the woman, or the teenager, the high schooler, her family's from Argentina, so Argentinians are here too. And then another woman I talked to said she's ran into people who are here from Uzbekistan. So this is not just a U.S. domestic issue. This is an issue that the world is paying attention to, and people are flying in and traveling from all across the country and different countries around the world to raise their voices about this issue. And I just can't, it is jam-packed. Billy and I have been shoulder to shoulder with people because there are so many people here, particularly as we close in right now on the Supreme Court.
We're actually at the Supreme Court now. We are here. We're seeing people praying, gathered in prayer, and people are singing and chanting. What better thing to be doing before the Supreme Court right now? And I would encourage everyone at home to be doing this as well, not just today, but every day as we inch toward this Supreme Court decision on abortion. But you know what? We should be doing it every day, praying for our leaders, no matter who they are. And so we'd encourage you to be doing that. And you can see right now there's a group gathered in front of the court. Our camera's over there now. There's also speeches and addresses going on. Individuals who regret their abortion, who are speaking out in front of the court as well. We'll try to make our way over there. The March for Life broadcast just showed a really sobering fact that there have been more than 37,000 abortions since our coverage began here. That is incredibly sobering.
Billy, I was just going to hop in here and ask you a question. You've been to a couple of these.
Yeah, I think that number really highlights.
What happens here at the end?
Out of 10 women who had abortions did not know healing programs existed.
At the end, you're seeing it right now. Camera is looking at this. It's women and men who talk about how abortion has impacted their lives. That is what happens here at the end, right in front of the steps of the most powerful court in the entire world. These individuals share, heartbreaking stories. We're going to pause because they're praying right now. Let's listen to this.
In our stories today, I thank you, Lord, for what you did in our hearts as these women courageously stood up and spoke the truth about what their abortion experience did in their lives. And Father God, Holy Spirit, Jesus, I pray that you would implant in the hearts of every person here today a desire to go and share these stories. We pray, Lord, for your holy courage to come upon us all, to speak the truth in conversations both intimate and as well as in groups. Give us courage to stand for the unborn, to stand for the mothers. Give this court the courage this year to overturn Roe. We do not need abortion in America, Lord. Please Help us end it. In the mighty name of Jesus, we are honored to pray. Amen. Thank you, and stay warm. Get warm.
So as bad as those numbers we shared before are, that 37,000, you look at the court before us, and there's hope. There is hope. 49 years. This is the 49th annual March for Life. People have not relented. They have not backed down. They have stood up for life. And now we have to pray for the court as they make a decision about what the future of Roe is going to look like.
Yeah, and Billy, I don't know if you had the same experience in some of the interviews that you had, but I kept talking to person after person who said, we're here for the 49th year, and we're hoping and praying that we're not back here next year for another march, but we're back here for a big party because Roe v. Wade had been, the precedent had been overturned. So there's so much momentum and so much excitement. I think that is important. Obviously, we need to know the sobering reality of what abortion is, but we also need to celebrate the fact that so many people are raising their voices, and Billy, you mentioned this, feminists, atheists, non-Christians, people of different religious beliefs, agnostics, everybody of different walks of life are coming together for this issue because they care about it, because it's a heart issue. And as Christians, I think we have a greater responsibility to speak out and to raise our voices, to talk about this issue, and that's what we're seeing now. So just, it's been an incredible event so far.
Yeah, and I think keeping in mind what Abby Johnson said as well, it's really important. No matter what happens with Roe, this battle is going to shift to the states, and there are going to be states where abortion is fully legalized, states like New York and California. There are going to be numerous states, upwards towards 20, where abortion is very restricted, but there's still going to be work to do. And again, prayer for our leaders, not just our national leaders, and not just the ones we like, everybody, but also our local leaders, our state leaders, our local community leaders, our school boards. I mean, these issues are pervasive, and they stretch throughout all of our culture. And so as we stare at this powerful court, recognizing that it's a whole system that requires and needs our prayer.
And something really cool, too, that I want to mention is I had a man come up just, he saw our CBN News coats, and he said, what CBN, want to know a little bit more about us? Are we Catholic? Are we Protestant? What? And he's Catholic, and I told him, a little bit about CBN. And he said, the important thing is just that we're all here together. He said, I don't care if you're Catholic, I don't care if you're Protestant, I don't care what denomination you are. He said, all we care about as pro-lifers is coming together for the issue of life. He said, because regardless of what you believe, where you come from, what you look like, how much money you have in the bank, how many kids you have or don't have, he said life matters for all of those people, and none of us would be here without advocating for life. So that was just a really cool reminder and an encouraging reminder that he said there are so many who don't care, and we're seeing that right now. I'm sure all of these people, some of them are the people you talked to, Billy, from Canada. They're from all over with different walks of life, but they're here for the same cause.
Argentina, Canada. I mean, it's remarkable, and we're getting some. You're getting some shots here of some young people who have some great signs. Peace begins in the womb. I'm the post-Roe generation. Again, we see that generational piece here. Love, life, always. And then this sign we've seen a lot of. Love them both. That reminder of loving both the baby and the mother. Love and pro-lifeness from womb to tomb, right?
Well, I think as believers, we have to remember love in all of this, right? Because as Scripture says, that if we speak the truth without love, we're just a clanging cymbal. Nobody's hearing us. But there's so many people who are holding those love signs, like you said, Billy. Love them both. Love, life, always. This is a compassionate protest. This isn't an angry protest. This is the people who are trying to spread truth, and they're doing it joyfully, and they're trying to appeal to people's emotions, appeal to their hearts, and appeal to their morals and their beliefs.
I look in front of me and I see the Supreme Court. I look behind me, I see the U.S. Capitol, and you just see these symbols of hope to so many around the world. And it's really... It's incredible. And as you said, Trey, this is a very, very peaceful and jovial. I mean, this is probably the most jovial event I've been to. And again, I've been to this 3 times. This one is different. It's incredibly different. Trey, what's your reflection on you talked a little bit about this before, but your reflection on your first time, being here in person?
I think that the joy is what is the biggest takeaway for me, because we saw all of the protests last year or 2 years ago. All the years bleed together now. But when the Black Lives Matter movement made headlines, and certainly there are other issues that are worth talking about all the time, but we saw so much violence and so much anger. But this one is just infused with so much joy, so much excitement, so much peace, and it's really heartwarming to see and to talk to so many people who've said, like, this is not, I don't believe this or I don't believe that, but I'm united on this issue. They come together on the life issue, and they don't care. It's like, I don't care what you believe or where you come from, what you look like, but we care about this issue together. So it's been really encouraging to see that people are willing to put aside their differences, to say, look, our partisan divide doesn't matter, because if we can't protect life from the beginning, then what do we have? So that's been really cool to see.
Yeah, I even saw a combat capitalism, but fight for life sign, and I thought that's so interesting, the diversity of views here. I also saw a sign that said, "Our salvation began with an unplanned pregnancy." There's all sorts of signs here, and it says AKA Jesus on it. So it's moving, to say the least.
So tell us a little, what's your name? I got Haley is your name, right? So why'd you decide to be here at the March for Life?
It's just really a big part of my faith, but I just really think, like, if you take faith out of it, it really just comes down to that's a person, and they're really meant, like, sorry. They have, like, sorry. I just really think everyone has a life, and you can't end it just because like it'll mess up your life. So if it's not your heart, then it's not your body, and it's not your DNA. And people think that just because they're inside of your body doesn't mean that, like, it's not your choice if it's not your body. Yeah, exactly.
So tell us a little bit about your sign, about your faith. Like, what does your faith play into why you chose to be here?
So my faith, so I'm Catholic, and this says our salvation began with an unplanned pregnancy. So our mother, Mary, she was told by Angel Gabriel that she was going to have a son, and he was going to be Jesus. And so she had no idea that she was going to have a son, and that just really tells a lot that even though, like, most of these women have babies and they don't know, it's just like, it was kind of untelling, and this really, like, history kind of replaying itself. And you can really, it's just kind of like walking by faith.
Right, because had she chosen to have an abortion, obviously that would have changed. Obviously that wouldn't have happened because of Jesus. But either way, that's a really cool reminder, and it's important to know that the life issue matters fundamentally. So thank you so much for taking a few minutes to talk with us. Enjoy the rest of your time here.
One of the things that shines through, that was a great interview. I love that you got to talk to her about the sign. But one of the things that shines through in light of what you said is just, the unity aspect of this, but how we interact with those who don't agree with us. How we interact with those who don't agree with us. I think we have to really think and pray through that, especially on this issue. It can be a really emotional issue.
I'll be around. I'm just going to circulate here.
I got dropped from the call.
Oh, I'm sorry.
All right, you've been watching here all afternoon CBN's coverage of the March for Life 2022, and Billy and Trey have reached the end of the march. So if they want to just say goodbye at this point, I'll let them do that here momentarily. But otherwise, they have made it to the Supreme Court. You have watched just an incredible event with at least 50,000 people there, and just amazing stuff, guys. You got any final thoughts before we head out?
You know, my final thought here is just to pray for all of our leaders, those who are making the big decisions, the people in this court who are going to have to make a decision that's going to have major ramifications. And remember to pray for our leaders daily.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a good takeaway, is to be prayerful, but also to be hopeful. I think that's something that we can take away from this rally. There are so many people who are excited about the future of the pro-life movement. By the way, regardless of what happens, whether the Supreme Court ends up overturning Roe or not, they're hopeful about the future. I've seen so many signs that are saying the future is anti-abortion. Regardless, that's going to change. They're confident about that. So I think that's an incredible takeaway too, is to be prayerful, but also to be hopeful about what's going to happen.
No birth, no peace.
There you go. Right. See? There you go.
All right. Well, guys, thanks for being down there all day today, walking that march for us. It was great to walk along and to see it firsthand. And again, you know, you guys had to brave the cold. A lot of people out there, 20-degree weather, and it's freezing out there. And so it was great to be able to kind of experience it in a different way when we were not able to be there. So we thank you all for watching at home here on CBN and choosing to watch this with us. Not that there's a lot of choices. The mainstream media is not always going to cover stuff like this. And so don't forget to subscribe to the CBN News YouTube channel, follow and subscribe to the Quick Start newsletter. Make sure, and the CBN News app, the CBN Family app, make sure you're getting your news directly from the source. You know, you don't want to be allowing gatekeepers to decide what you see and don't see. Go direct to it. You know, you have a Christian value, I assume, if you're watching Christian Broadcast Network, and you would like to have a news network that reflects that view, and that's what we do here. So once again, thank you for watching the March for Life 2022, our special live stream coverage. And we just pray, as Billy and Trey said, for the country on this issue, and we pray for you as we go throughout this weekend here, and hope you have a great one. God bless, and we'll see you next time.